Chapter 161, Aerial Attacking. If these archers' placement was arranged just like in the movie Hero'1, they would undoubtedly be able to shoot down even Superman. However, Corrals only had 100 archers and their placement was done in a haphazard manner. Evidently, their formation could not hold a candle to the one depicted in that movie. This was good news to Amethyst Rebirth's 5 remaining players. If these archers were properly set up in the outer layer of Corral's defensive formation, July, Lili, and Willow would never be able to break through their ranks with their speed. At present, as long as Goofy and Svelte Dancer were able to draw most of the archers' firepower on themselves, the 3 ladies would have a good chance of succeeding of breaking through the archers' defensive line. That was actually the first step of the Plan D that they had in mind, so they would have zero chance of proceeding to the next step of it if they suffered any losses at this stage. Thus, they needed to find a more reliable method to penetrate the archers' ranks. "Look, it's at that side." Willow inclined her head as she said this to her 4 guildmates. Corral's players' stratagem was for them to maintain their formation on a high ground in order to have a 360-degree view of their surroundings, but the emphasis for this stratagem was not actually on how high the formation could be placed, but it was instead on how clear their line of sight was without being obstructed or blocked by the uneven terrains. Even if they managed to find themselves the highest ground possible, it would not be useful if the location was filled with uneven terrains or trees that could block their line of sight, as the enemies could easily use those as cover to sneak up on their high ground formation. It was precisely because this plateau had fulfilled Corral's strategic requirements that they had chosen to maintain their 360-degree formation over here. Unfortunately, nothing perfect existed in the world. As Willow had just pointed out, an uneven terrain racked with depressions and protrusions near where the Corral's men had positioned themselves. It was nothing compared to the cover that players could get within a forest of trees, as the view range was still broad and unobstructed, but such a place could provide plenty of cover that would limit the archers' prowess ever so slightly. The 5 showed a calm and somewhat lackadaisical expression on their faces as they headed over there nonchalantly. "The remaining enemies are now gathered over by that slope. Shall we rush in and wipe them out completely? And we can win if we take them out immediately right now," were the gist of the conversations on Corral's guild channel right now. In fact, most of Corral's players felt mystified by the stratagem that they had employed against just 5 players. "No." Brave Surge resolutely refused, explaining that Mage's magic attack power is very high. Just his 1 AO spell can potentially turn the tide of this match. Going in the offensive here will just give him the chance to capitalize on it. There's Svelte Dancer to worry about, too. With her fast movement speed in this huge PvP arena, it will nearly be impossible for us to surround her, especially if she still has a teleportation scroll that will enable her to instantly change her position at any given time. Don't be tempted to make a move on the 5, as it may very likely provide them something to exploit against us. Take special note of that Mage. As long as he is unable to use any spells, he won't be able to turn this around on us. With the guild leader's firm words, the members no longer dared to make any suggestions and merely continued to closely watch the 5 players' movement. Whichever part of the defensive formation the 5 headed, the Corral's players assigned to that portion would be on guard against their every action. "Ah, they are nearing Zone S," someone reported on the guild channel. Zone S was the one area in the plateau that Willow had indicated as having depressions and protrusions. "I know," Brave Surge answered, hinting that the other's report was unnecessary as he himself was keeping an eye on the 5. Zone S was the suitable location if the enemies were planning to make a desperate final assault. Brave Surge believed that Amethyst Rebirth would also arrive at this same conclusion, so he had chosen to personally supervise this part of the formation. Just as he had suspected, the 5 really indeed chose this location to mount their assault. They're all moving together. The 5 of Amethyst Rebirth were now easy targets for long-range attacks, yet Brave Surge insisted that everyone should remain on the current high ground. Besides young Master Han's warning about the strength of the Mage, Brave Surge was largely cautious of how his opponents were capable of teleporting away to escape their near-death situation, as they had shown earlier. Teleportation was a foreign concept to most players in Parallel World. Would the player become invulnerable when under the teleportation's effect? Was it possible to still attack while teleporting? If a mage finished chanting his or her spell and teleported away, Would the spell still be in effect? With the many questions surrounding its usage, Brave Surge could not help but be on guard toward it. They would rather be mocked for how they had won than become a laughingstock like Cloudherder mercenary group. After entering Zone S, the five immediately dashed into the archers' attack range as they strove to hide behind the available covers simultaneously. The firing archers all missed their targets and helplessly shook their heads toward their guild leader, hoping for any instructions on how they should proceed. Just fire off arrows randomly to hamper their advance, Brave Surge commanded. It was indeed difficult for the archers to fully utilize their advantage in this part of the plateau, so expecting too much from them would only make things hard for everyone. Thus, the archers indiscriminately fired off their arrows despite those basically being useless due to the cover that the terrain provided. The five opposing players managed to find cover as they advanced onward, almost instantly turning into moles as they used the terrain as best as they could. A figure could sometimes be seen flashing out of a mound, or half a head could be seen peeking out from inside a depression. This part of the plateau gave the Carouse's players this grating impression that the current PvP match had turned into a game of whack-a-mole, and that they were each currently trying to whack the lurking moles while holding a mallet. And so, the archers as well as everyone powerlessly watched these five figures dart forward 50 or 60 meters before gathering behind a mound together. The Carouse's members were utterly distressed. If only these moles would move just 2 more steps from that mound, they would enter the range of the spell bombardment of the mages. Since the mages would be casting AO spells, they did not even have to worry about locking on the targets properly like archers in order for their attacks to connect. Seeing that only about 30 meters were separating them from their 5 enemies, those from Carouse could not stop their hearts from thumping wildly. Ever since they had a clear view of their 5 opponents just now, they had been raring to rush forward and blast those 5 to their deaths. Yet no one dared to make a move in the end since their guild leader did not give them the go signal. How long has it been since they hid behind the mound? Brave Surge suddenly asked someone beside him. The person felt very surprised by the sudden question, but he looked at the time and tried his best to give an accurate response. It has been 11 seconds. His question had revealed how nervous Brave Surge was inside. Seeing that the 5 had not made any movement, his heart thumped very fast as he felt that each second was passing by very slowly. Guild leader, should we? Many of Carouse's men were getting impatient. Discovering that their guild leader was also feeling jittery, someone promptly tried to suggest assaulting the enemies. No. Remain as we are to adapt to the potential changes too, Brave Surge interrupted. Although he was feeling equally as anxious as his men, he firmly stood his ground on the matter. Some men's judgment would be moved by their emotions, while others would attempt to control their emotions and not allow them to interfere with occurrences. Brave Surge was the latter, making him a suitable commander. Just as he ordered his men to continue holding their horses, a change happened. A figure started popping out from behind the mound and running in the open. Quickly fire off an arrow, Brave Surge hurriedly commanded after seeing that this enemy did not enter a cover once it appeared. All the archers were waiting for such a chance for the longest time and eagerly released a rain of arrows on this target. However, this target's speed was truly too fast and it caused most of the archers to miss their mark. A few arrows managed to track the target since some of the archers had fired them off under homing projectile. Yet whether the arrows can actually hit their mark or not with a person's speed was another question. In that moment when the archers unleashed their attacks, 3 other figures also stood up from behind the mound. Before the archers could fire off their second volley of arrows, one of the 3 players had grabbed a hold of the person's waist on the left and tossed the player out with a jerk of both arms before doing the same thing to the person on the right. By the time the second wave of arrows flew out, those 2 players had already sailed through the air. Hence, the arrows only found a target on that one upright figure on the mound. Excellent throwing skill. One of the 2 complimented as they sailed through the air, yet July had already turned into a white light under the barrage of arrows when they looked back to the mound. Hit those 2 with spells. The Carouse's mages watched in a daze as the 2 players sailed through the air, momentarily forgetting that the 2 had already entered their area of spell bombardment. Brave Surge's loud command managed to drag them back to their senses and they began to chant their spells. But who would have guessed that a figure would suddenly appear from within the casting mage's ranks next? Coming in with bare fists, This person did not kill anyone but simply shoved and jostled the mages chanting descending wheel of flames all about. A mage could not move or suffer an attack while chanting a spell, as either happening could interrupt his or her spell casting. So not only did those mages fail to chant their spells, they accidentally jostled the others beside them as well, causing the others to stagger a few steps and also break off their incantations. Although the melee job classes quickly came to deal with the thief that had suddenly appeared, the originally perfect weave of spells began to show obvious gaps in the coordinated spell bombardment. Gufei and Lili, whom July had previously tossed, met midair. As Lili stretched her arms out to grab Gufei, she took a quick glance at their surroundings and used seismic toss like what July had done a while ago to toss him further toward the spell bombardment area that had the least overcast of flame wheels. Lili crashed onto the ground by herself and was instantly swallowed by the raging infernos scorching the land, turning into a beam of white light. "Miles, good luck," Willow shouted. She was currently stuck behind enemy lines and subsequently surrounded by the opposing guild's melee job classes. Evidently, she would not be able to hold on for long. Gufei had no complaints, as the ladies had done their parts to ensure the success of their strategy. He got through the spell bombardment and sailed toward the carouse's formation. Against an enemy coming in from the air, the opposing players were at a loss on how to deal with him. Mid-air, Gufei threw off the outer coat covering Midnight Spirit robe using his two arms and fished out his sword, causing the coat to flutter back in place. Roaring deeply, he intended to flourish his sword as soon as he alighted on the ground, yet he ended up crashing into the ground instead. Dust and dirt scattered about. And Gufei was of course feeling ashamed with himself. He had actually forgotten that since he was hurtled via seismic toss over here, the system would require him to fall flat on the ground. All his labor while midair to land upright was for naught. However, a loss was not necessarily a bad thing. Gufei's very embarrassing fall had actually managed to lure many carouse's members into encircling him. Gufei rolled on the ground without getting up and used his sword to demonstrate his prone saber style on the enemies. He had not forgotten to cast Twin Incineration while flourishing his sword, trying his best to inflict damage on the highest possible number of enemies around him. 6. Gufei felt immensely gratified. This was the highest record of insta-kill he had gotten from combining his kung fu with Twin Incineration thus far. He could hardly believe that he would attain such a feat in dire straits. After getting the system prompt that 6 fellow guildmates had been killed off by that one slash, the eyelids of carouse's players twitched and someone yelled out, "Don't be rash. Quickly disperse and get the archers here." However, Gufei was already chanting, "Blazing 3 of 1,000 Inferno. Arise. Interrupt IT. Quickly interrupt IT." Brave Surge frantically bellowed to the guild members nearest Gufei. Gufei only had to chant one spell, so no matter how fast Brave Surge could issue his command, it was not possible for the carouse's players to carry out his command in time. A raging inferno had already sprouted from below. Chapter 162. Flawless. The members of carouse ran helter-skelter as they attempted to evade the spell. Unfortunately, some of them failed to escape blazing fire of 1,000 infernos YDO in time despite quickly leaving their stationary positions. Nonetheless, Gufei's slow casting time still gave most of carouse's players enough time to make their escape. Glancing at Amethyst Rebirth's score, he saw that it had increased by another 6 kill points. What was originally a score of 29 against 49 had now become 41 against 49. Another 9 kills would allow Amethyst Rebirth to turn the tables on carouse. No one could stop this reversal, as Gufei immediately followed up his chanting of Blazing 3 of 1,000 Inferno with the incantation for Descending Wheel of Flames. The flame wheel in the sky began to form once the raging inferno sprouted. Some of the players underneath the flame wheel ran away, yet a few unfortunate souls rushed over to the flame wheel's AO to get away from the raging inferno. These players who had failed to see the flame wheel descending from the sky could not dodge it in time, gaining Gufei 11 kill points, which were more than the last spells. The tide had finally turned with a score of 52 against 49. Mere moments had passed since Felt Dancer lured away that first wave of archers' attacks until now. "I learned this from you," Gufei smilingly said to Brave Surge, who was audibly grinding his teeth in frustration at the turn of events. The two spells Gufei had just casted truly resembled a bit of Carouse's spell bombardment. When young Master Han introduced the guild leader of Carouse to Gufei, Brave Surge left a strong impression of his spellcasting with his blue magic staff to Gufei. Brave Surge gritted his teeth harder. Casting two AO spells might seem easy, but besides timing the chanting, one must calculate the target's movement speed and predict his or her intended direction as well. Doing all these necessary steps prior to execution ensured that the second spell would not miss. As for Gufei, he did not need to think too much about these when casting his spells, as he currently had plenty of targets to choose from. Arctic Whirlwind. Release. Brave Surge raised his magic staff and a whirlwind came into existence, heading toward Gufei while spinning. "You still wanna fight with me?" Gufei smiled, saying, "You're better off chasing after Svelte Dancer." Brave Surge continued to grind his teeth in frustration. Some of his men who had been chasing after Svelte Dancer just sent him this message: "She was very fast." So Brave Surge was very aware that there was no way to chase after her. Brave Surge knew that they would most likely lose this match. Feeling heartbroken, he now just wanted to take revenge on Gufei. Twin Incineration. Incinerate. Gufei did not choose to evade Brave Surge's Arctic Whirlwind. Instead, he met it head-on by sweeping his sword with both hands as he finished chanting a spell toward Arctic Whirlwind. The twin dragons entwining around moonlit nightfalls blazed fiercely as it slashed Arctic Whirlwind in half, dissipating it in an instant. Gufei brought his hands to his sides and said to Brave Surge, "Alright, stop messing around." Brave Surge felt extremely shocked by what he had just witnessed. It was not actually that surprising for Arctic Whirlwind to be cleaved away by a heavy physical attack, as quite a lot of strong warriors could do that. But while Arctic Whirlwind's spell damage would be reduced once it got dissipated, the spell's additional freezing effect that reduced speed would still come into play once it touched the enemy. And yet, Gufei's movements seemed completely normal, as if the spell's freezing effect did not get triggered. Only one explanation could justify this: the burning effect of Gufei's twin incineration was deemed stronger by verdict to the point of completely suppressing Arctic Whirlwind's freezing effect. For him to have such a high level of proficiency toward twin incineration, just what sort of mage was he building? Brave Surge began to take note of Gufei's sword in hand and tried to appraise it, only getting rows of question marks in the end. Gufei walked about casually as Carouse's 600 members kept him trapped within. Raising a hand to his brow, he swept his gaze around him and sighed deeply. "Oh, dear. I can't even see where Svelte Dancer has run off to." Gufei said that while fishing out an apple from his dimensional pocket to bite on it. Unexpectedly, he heard a whooshing sound that was quickly followed by a satisfying thwack. An arrow had struck the apple in his hand, splattering its flesh and juice all over his face. Expressionlessly turning his head over and seeing an archer with a raised bow, his face showed a good deal of shock. "You saw through me," Gufei acknowledged, asking, "But don't tell me that you were only aiming for that apple?" The person felt quite embarrassed. "All right, I admit it. I'm out of mana." Gufei raised his hands, adding, "Kill me if you wish." Not one player was around him at this point in time. Brave Surge raised his hand and several archers and mages came out. "Hey, don't be like this. Send me 2 melee job classes to play with," Gufei dejectedly requested. Brave Surge ignored his request as he issued an order. The archers shot out arrows on homing projectile while the mages casted AO spells to where Gufei was. "Fireball! Shoot!" Gufei defiantly countered their attacks by using his last bit of mana to cast the most basic spell in his arsenal. The opponent's attacks all struck the part where Gufei was, yet he did not try to dodge any of them, as there would be no use in doing so. Finally, Gufei was reduced into a stream of white light that soon faded away. The fireball unsteadily floated toward the crowd, but given how experienced all these players were, no one tried to dodge it as they knew that fireball no longer had any spell damage on it and a simple slap from one of them would extinguish it. "Every second counts. Go and find Svelte Dancer fast," Brave Surge ordered and proceeded to look all around him. The scenery before him blurred as he suddenly realized the vastness of this PvP arena. causing his heart palpitate erratically as the task at hand overwhelmed him. Gu Fei's vision darkened for a bit before returning to normal. He then found himself by the teleportation array outside the main hall of guilds. The Amethyst Rebirth's ladies were around him. The sight of Gu Fei being crowded by a bevy of babes immediately attracted the envy of the other male players nearby. Look at that guy. To be teleported right in the middle of so many ladies, how very lucky of him. What happened? How's everything? The ladies each asked Gu Fei. Players that were transported outside of the PvP arena would be unable to hear the system announcements for their respective ongoing matches, so none of the ladies knew of the current score. We've made a comeback in terms of kill points, Gu Fei answered. All the ladies cheered. Good luck, Xia. The guild channel was filled with words of encouragement and celebration. Gu Fei smiled at the sight of the ladies rejoicing and quietly moved to leave. Where are you going? Quite a few of them had noticed Gu Fei leaving and asked this question. I've got something on, so I'll take my leave first and see you all tomorrow. Gu Fei replied and squeezed his way through the crowd, running straight toward Ray's bar. Where's young master? Gu Fei quietly asked Trey upon entering the bar. Ray pointed to room 2. Gu Fei giddily walked toward the said room and lifted the curtain before freezing on the spot. Young Master Han was indeed inside the room, and so was Coward's Savior. The two were enthusiastically exchanging drinks, and Coward Savior was even insistently pushing a chunk of grilled meat toward young Master Han. This is the best one. Grilling this chunk alone has increased my proficiency by 3 points. Have a taste. Both men turned to look at Gu Fei when he entered the room. Coward Savior hurriedly placed the grilled meat down as he got up to greet Gu Fei. Young Master Han stared at him with a placid smile on his face. Sigh. Gu Fei forced a smile on his face and said, you guys are getting along quite well. Quite well indeed. What else do you expect? Young Master Han laughed coldly as he raised his glass to toast with Coward's Savior. Coward Savior drained his glass in one gulp and said to Gu Fei while patting the seat next to him, sit down, drunk bro. I am still waiting for the man that you're talking about. It's a good thing that you arrived first. I'll put on a good show for you in just a minute. Gu Fei had resolutely refused Coward Savior calling him master, but the latter had insisted on having a respectable title for him. So Gu Fei finally settled on having Coward Savior address him in the same way that Fireball was doing. Gu Fei learned that Coward Savior was younger than him, so this way of addressing him was not inappropriate. Alright. Gu Fei stopped Coward Savior from talking further, saying, go ahead and resume what you were doing a while ago. No need for your help here anymore. It's fine. Just go and be busy with your things. Gu Fei patted him on his shoulder. Oh. Coward Savior bade farewell to young Master Han and prepared to leave. Before leaving, he reminded Gu Fei, don't call me coward. Call me Coward's Savior. Kung Fu produces no cowards. Alright. I got it coward. Gu Fei completely ignored his request. Coward Savior nodded his head in satisfaction and left the room, not realizing that Gu Fei had still called him as coward. He. Gu Fei gazed at young Master Han with a stupid grin plastered on his face. A man that looks like a woman? Beat him up good, eh? Young Master Han said. What? No. That is all a misunderstanding. Gu Fei vehemently denied. Is that so? Just which part was it that I have misunderstood? Young Master Han clicked his tongue as he asked sarcastically. Evidently, young Master Han had learned of Gu Fei's order and had somehow duped Coward Savior into thinking that he was not the one that Gu Fei was talking about. Since the matters had gotten to this point, Gu Fei could only shamelessly press on, slapping the table with no regard. Don't be so arrogant. Do you think no one's gonna beat you up just because that guy left? I'm still sitting right here. I'll just beat you up myself if I have to. Did you get by that match fine? It was alright. This was how intelligent men acted when trying to change a subject, not dragging things out and going straight to a point. Your so-called flawless strategy doesn't seem to be much, after all. Gu Fei goaded. You turn the tables on us? Young Master Han asked. Gu Fei nodded his head. Oh, how did you do it? Young Master Han pressed on. Gu Fei explained the process. Using seismic toss twice to get across the spell bombardment and you're not dead? You? Young Master Han found this entire account incredulous. I calculated it, Gu Fei replied, explaining, the two ladies removed all their equipment that boosts their damage, so their seismic toss could only half my HP. Then, I borrowed an item with magic resistance from Svelte Dancer, pushing my fire resistance all the way up to 73% and allowing me to make it through the spell bombardment with enough HP. That woman is perverse. Young Master Han mumbled. Hee hee. Gu Fei merely laughed. Such a violent method is all you can think of? Young Master Han asked. What's your expert method, then? Gu Fei countered. Doesn't she have a teleportation scroll? Wouldn't going and using stealth and marking the coordinates work just as well? Young Master Han sarcastically inquired. Plus, they were gathered up just waiting for you lot to try and do a reversal on them. Why did you act so soon? Wouldn't it be better for you lot to do this at the last minute? Now, if they manage to find and take care of Svelte Dancer, won't all your efforts go down the drain? Young Master Han looked at the time as he continued, there are still 30 minutes left before the match is over. Gu Fei could only hum at this. TSK, TSK, TSK. Young Master Han repeatedly clucked his tongue loudly while shaking his head. Didn't you say that your stratagem is flawless? Gu Fei countered. I've already said earlier that I placed importance into the mercenary group. What has this got to do with our mercenary group? If Amethyst Rebirth manages to win here, it will subsequently advance the battle strategy of our mercenary group by a huge step, Young Master Han answered. Chapter 163, The Big Strategy DSK. Gu Fei did not believe Young Master Han's words. Don't act like you meant for this to happen. Were it not for Svelte Dancer's teleportation scroll, we would long die to that spell bombardment that you have set up. Is that so? Young Master Han drawled in his usual self-centered mannerism that seemed to be asking for a beating from others. The glass in Gu Fei's hand would already shatter if it were not for the fact that he was a mage with low strength. Do your best. Control yourself. Gu Fei thought to himself, just like how Stephen Chow did it when he was facing that rough sea in the opening scene of King of Comedy 1. Anyway, the situation now isn't too bad. Young Master Han looked at the time once more, asking, can Svelte Dancer get through this alone? Of course. Gu Fei nodded his head. You're not the only one who considered the issue of time. With Svelte Dancer's capabilities, lasting until the match's end won't be a problem. Capability? Is a teleportation scroll considered a capability now? Gu Fei did not answer his question. Pausing for a moment, he remarked, it's very boring sitting here and waiting. I'm sure it wouldn't be boring if War Without Wounds or Royal God Call was here instead, Young Master Han said. Gu Fei thought about it and honestly nodded his head. I completely agree. A period of silence descended before Gu Fei finally asked, did you purposely strategize against Carouse? Not at the start, but it became like that after I died, Young Master Han answered. Why not from the start? Gu Fei pressed on. Besides you and Svelte Dancer, the other members of your guild can totally be ignored. Although you two have fast movement speed, Carouse's number and the long match duration would give us ample time to exert pressure all over the map to the point that neither you nor Svelte Dancer could escape, Young Master Han reasoned, adding, but after seeing Svelte Dancer's teleportation scroll, I changed my mind and helped you two to achieve victory instead. Oh? That's why I exaggerated about you and Svelte Dancer's capabilities, suggesting that we proceed with caution by setting a defensive formation. I was planning to tell you my solution on how to deal with them in the final 10 minutes, yet you were hot-headed enough to strong-arm your way to their defensive line half an hour earlier, Young Master Han remarked expressionlessly. There you go, deciding things on your own again. If we couldn't hold on till the final 10 minutes, wouldn't your planning be for naught? Gu Fei asked. Is it still my responsibility if you all couldn't last till the final 10 minutes? Young Master Han countered. Gu Fei choked. Why couldn't you have said something sooner? Didn't I say so before? My defense is perfect that even I have not found the method to break it yet. That was me telling you to stay put and not try anything fancy against my perfectly designed plan, Young Master Han answered. Sorry about that. The way how your narcissism worked into your speech made me assume that you were just being sarcastic, Gu Fei remarked dryly. Young Master Han shook his head sadly. Look at the cumbersome plan that you have come up with. Success will just mean that your luck isn't terrible. Gu Fei could only laugh bitterly at his comment. The two waited in silence inside the room for the match to end. Half an hour later, Gufei received a message from Svelte Dancer. Where are you? We've won. Wah ha 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 ha. I am really too up. Gufei happily replied to her message with one word, wonderful. Young Master Han furrowed his brows while he was peeking at Gufei's messages from the sidelines. After a while, he waved his hands off dismissively. How noisy. Isn't anyone going to trouble you? Gufei asked as he drank his liquor. How he wished someone would rush here to give young Master Han a good thrashing. Gufei could do it himself, but with everyone's familiarity with one another, he felt uncomfortable doing the beating himself. Young Master Han shook his head. I don't know. He had long muted the guild channel. Not too long after, a cacophony of noises echoed from outside the room and a woman's voice boomed above the din. Drinks are on me for everyone who's currently here. Cheering echoed all over Ray's bar as Gufei and young Master Han looked at each other's eyes and called out in unison, Ray. Ray hurriedly appeared before the two men. Is someone outside treating around? Young Master Han asked. Ray nodded his head. Get me 2 bottles of your most expensive liquor, young Master Han ordered. Ray gave a slight smile as he left the room. I've drunk that before, and it's really not bad. Gufei excitedly commented. Young Master Han's expression instantly turned frigid. Need I remind you on how you could afford to drink that kind of liquor? Gufei hurriedly shut his trap. Ray quickly brought their drinks over. Because it was on someone else's tab, the whole bar began to carouse to their heart's content. Ray was immensely busy right now and said just 2 perfunctory words before placing the bottles of liquor down and leaving. Ah! Gazing upon the bottle, young Master Han radiated with a rarely seen happiness and swiftly poured himself a glass. Although Gufei was not that into drinking, he did not want to waste this chance to taste such a good quality liquor that the game had priced at 120 gold coins per bottle, and also quickly poured himself a full glass. Of course, those people who had rushed into the bar were none other than the ladies of Amethyst Rebirth. They could hardly believe themselves that they had won a match against the second largest guild in Yunjuan City, Carouse. In their euphoria, they had temporarily abandoned their inhibitions and were openly tittering in the bar. The bar patrons inquired about the reason for this generous treat and could hardly believe their ears as well when they heard about the outcome of Amethyst Rebirth and Carouse's match. Svelte Dancer had accomplished a great feat indeed, with how she had to spend the last half of an hour alone against 600 players. Outside the room, she was gamely telling everybody how she had managed to hide from the pursuit of over 600 players. A look of realization dawned on young Master Han as he said to Gufei, now I know why you didn't choose to attack at the very last minute. Turns out you were purposefully leaving that half an hour for her so that she could be seen as the one contributing the most. Gufei smiled as he raised his glass. Drink your liquor. Young Master Han emptied the glass with one gulp and sighed. I don't even feel like I've taken advantage of the situation drinking this liquor. I've earned it. Gufei chuckled. That was when the chattering outside suddenly subsided, accumulating into silence. In the next moment, Gufei heard July say, Ah, it's the gentlemen of Carouse. Is something the matter? Are they looking for trouble? Gufei frowned, his hand already reaching into his dimensional pocket for his sword. Don't worry, young Master Han assured, Brave Surge isn't that sort of guy. The two then heard Brave Surge answer July's question, can I know where is that male mage of your guild? I'm quite interested in him, so I am hoping to get to know him a bit. He's not here, July curtly replied. Oh. Brave Surge had eyes of his own, a quick inspection of the bar, and he indeed did not see a trace of Gufei. Can you tell me how to contact him? In that case, I'll relay your message and let him decide. July answered crisply. Thank you. Brave Surge answered as he brought his men and left the premises. The ladies all sighed in relief. Everyone had originally thought that Carouse's men felt cheated off of their win and wanted to regain a bit of face on the spot. Hearing what the Carouse's guild leader was saying, it seems that he wishes to headhunt Miles. The ladies began to discuss this among themselves. They could tell how mighty Gufei was after being with him in several guild matches, and a man of his caliber certainly seemed like someone that large guilds would fight over for. Gufei was different from Svelte Dancer. While she was a top-class expert herself, Her mentality complemented the other ladies. She was here for a good time and did not harbor thoughts of tyrannizing or contending for the throne of being number one. That was why she could be happy in a small guild and why her own mercenary group could be disbanded at the drop of a hat. As for Gufei, none of the ladies could get rid of his thoughts, as they were not even close to him to begin with. Moreover, he had only joined the guild due to a misunderstanding and had mentioned before that he would leave the guild sooner or later. The relationship between Gufei and these ladies was not especially deep, nor did they care if he was an expert or a noob. But as time went on, they had gotten used to having someone like him in the guild, so they felt somewhat saddened at the possibility of this status quo changing. The atmosphere in the bar suddenly became quite sullen. Young Master Han ridiculed, "Well, what do you know? These ladies actually have quite a bit of a soft spot for you." Gufei smiled but did not say a word. It was not exactly a bad thing for people to have a soft spot for him. The third round of the PvP event had ended as thus. Yeonju-on City once more had a hot topic to discuss, and its content was the defeat of Carouse at the hands of Amethyst Rebirth. The tip-off this time was different from that of Cloud Herder mercenary groups, as the person who had leaked this information was from neither side. The original poster claimed that he had conducted a very thorough interview with both parties, yet the post did not mention the existence of the Mage Gufei. The post emphasized merely on the overwhelming strength of Svelte Dancer, one of the 5 unyielding experts, as well as the existence of a teleportation scroll. This information did not exactly have a huge impact on the players outside Yeonju-on City, but it created huge waves to the ones within Yeonju-on City. Before, it was Cloud Herder mercenary group with its 70 or so members. Now, it was Carouse with its over 700 members. This sort of dragging the time out stratagem was simply too scary. Every large guild and mercenary group reacted appropriately, heavily researching a method to crack this stratagem. Hey, Carouse lives up to its name. The impact of their defeat is more intense than Cloud Herder's defeat to us. Young Master Han nodded his head in satisfaction. It's Cloud Herder, Brother Assist corrected. It's all in the past, so why bother? I can't wait to see what sort of strategy would our new foe come up with. Young Master Han laughed coldly. The rest of Young Master's elite took a copy each of the materials Brother Assist had gathered for today's opposing mercenary group. Gufei swept through the data once and laughed. This mercenary group we are facing for today will definitely be unaffected by whatever strategy you come up with. Oh, is there someone in that group who can see through my intentions? Young Master Han asked as he checked the report that Brother Assist had prepared. Young Master's elite mercenary group's 4th round opponent, Level 1 Amethyst mercenary group with 20 members. Besides the level 41 thief Svelte Dancer, no one else had reached level 40. Chapter 164, Pointless Effort. Amethyst mercenary group was established right before the mercenary PvP tournament started, so it had yet to reach level 2. Since each level added another 20 members to the mercenary group member limit, all of Amethyst Rebirth's 50+ ladies could not join the mercenary group even if they wanted to. Young Master Han swept his gaze through the report and dismissively tossed it back onto the table. I don't see how these women could see through my intentions. Gufei smiled and simply replied, it's not see-through, but disregard. Get it? They have always been ignoring any sort of strategy. The expert realm. Brother Assist chuckled, saying, that is the unchanging yet adaptive realm of the experts. Out of everyone else, only Sword Demon took the matter seriously and read the information provided carefully. War Without Wounds and Royal God Call were currently competing with each other on who knew more of the listed women in the report. Gufei turned his attention over to these two and said, compare with me. Scram. The two said together. Young Master Han's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Royal God Call and War Without Wounds would lose themselves whenever they met women, while Gufei's relationship with the Amethyst Rebirth's women should not be taken lightly either. He suddenly felt uncertain on how these three would perform during the upcoming fight. Did Young Master's elite finally meet its match? This group of simple-minded ladies would simply ignore all kinds of strategies. After all, Young Master Han turned his gaze toward Brother Assist and Sword Demon. Sword Demon was still wordlessly reading the report while Brother Assist was looking at Gufei, Royal God Call, and War Without Wounds with worry etched on his face. The strength of Amethyst mercenary group may be average, but Svelte Dancer is one of the 5 unyielding experts. Wearing top-grade equipment all over her body, her strength is certainly up, so we need to remain cautious, Brother Assist said. Ha ha. Royal Godcall laughed gleefully. I know 15 of them, and you only know 11. You're getting old. Wounds. Motherfucker. War Without Wounds shredded the report in his displeasure. Gufei did not make a sound by the side. This was because he had just realized that out of the 20 ladies listed, he could only recognize 8 of them. Gufei felt somewhat ashamed when Royal Godcall and War Without Wounds enviously gazed at him, as they were probably thinking that he knew the 20 ladies very well. Royal Godcall took out a fresh set of the report and pointed toward a name. Nobody can kill this beauty. Gufei popped his head over and glanced at the name. Grape. Who's this again? He did not recall her at all even after thinking about the IGN for quite some time. War Without Wounds also glanced over. Oh, are you interested in Grape? Royal Godcall puffed his chest spiritedly and smiled. She is beautiful, but more importantly, I think she has feelings for me. Blip. War Without Wounds showed his disdain. Miles, you better help me in making her notice me more often. Royal Godcall said to Gufei. With him being a member of Amethyst Rebirth, the two were thinking that Gufei must be closer to the ladies than the two of them since he had plenty of chances to mingle with them. I will, Gufei replied as he thought to himself, fuck. Who the hell is this Grape, anyway? Pulling out the guild tab, he saw that Grape was a level 37 priest. Gufei barely took note of the non-combat job classes, so the only Amethyst Rebirth's priest he knew was Luo. As the three continued to while their time by casually going through the information in the report, the heart of the priest sitting across them was getting filled with resentment fast. These 3 men would usually be asleep, if not daydreaming, whenever they had this sort of meeting. Today, the 3 were quite attentive for a different reason, and one already requested for young Master's Elite to go easy on a particular lady. It seemed that he should not expect too much from the 3 for today's match. Young Master Han finally hated not having an indomitable combat job class, otherwise, he would be able to brutally knock some sense into these 3. Sword Demon, better make your preparation. Looks like it's gonna be up to you today. He faintly said this to Sword Demon. After looking through the information provided, Sword Demon placed the document back onto the table and nodded his head. Over by the Amethyst Rebirth's side, the ladies had been feeling excited ever since they found out who they were matched up to this time around. Quite a few of them who had not signed up for the mercenary group were feeling very remorseful right now. Raising the mercenary group's level was not possible at the moment, and even if they could do so, the participants for the upcoming match had already been set, so the additional members could not participate in it still. Many of the ladies moaned in dismay. Of course, the reason why these ladies were feeling disappointed was not that they wanted to meet all of Young Master's Elite's members, but it was because they wanted to lay eyes on the legendary character, Close Combat Mage 27149. After all, the other members of Young Master's Elite had long been revealed to these ladies. July and a few others did not leak this information to the guild. Instead, Royal Godcall and War Without Wounds were the ones who had intentionally leaked this truth to the ladies in hopes of projecting themselves as mighty and glorious individuals. Although the awesomeness of Young Master's Elite that existed in the ladies' hearts was something that the two would often exploit, the two resolutely kept Gufei's identity as the Close Combat Mage hidden from them. The ladies viewed the Close Combat Mage as the most outstanding player in every manner, so Royal Godcall and War Without Wounds were positive that they would be unable to scavenge even a bit of the ladies' adoration if they found out the truth about Gufei. After working their butts off for so long, the two were naturally unwilling to let Gufei take these ladies away from them. There were many mercenary groups in Yunjuan City, so who would have thought that Amethyst would serendipitously meet Young Master's Elite in the mercenary PvP tournament? With this, 27,149 would no longer be able to hide his identity from them. Ha 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 ha. 27,149's number 1 fan, Lai Lai, was of course the most elated by this. I can finally meet my idol, she happily declared. He he he. Willow and Luo laughed dryly together. In Amethyst Rebirth, only the two knew that Gufei was Young Master's Elite's Close Combat Mage. HMPH. Is that person really that great? Svelte Dancer asked skeptically. She had only recently joined Amethyst Rebirth, and these ladies' most common topic in their conversations was this close combat mage 27,149. All the ladies vigorously nodded their heads. He is super awesome. He hunted that despicable thief and dropped his level by 8. Who is that useless thief? Svelte Dancer asked. No smile. Oh, that damn huckster. Don't let me meet him in person. Svelte Dancer menacingly wiped her dagger. There is still 1 hour. Some of the ladies excitedly counted the time. Hey, this is a match, not a fan meetup session, Svelte Dancer reminded. Of course, I wanna let him see how awesome I am. Lili bumped her fists together. Both sides were counting down the time in their respective locations. When the match was only half an hour away, everyone stood up. Let's go. Amethyst Mercenary Group left the guildhouse, while Young Masters Elite Mercenary Group left Trey's bar. The two locations were near each other. Since both sides were heading toward the same location, they would inadvertently meet along the way. Royal Godcall sharpened his eyes. Seeing the ladies walking out from the opposite alleyway, he hurriedly gave a look to War Without Wounds. War Without Wounds was surprisingly attentive as well, and the two instantly walked up together. Miles. War Without Wounds reached his hand out and patted Gouffé. Gouffé did not dodge that pat, as he never thought that War Without Wounds would use his strength to hold him in place and would proceed to push him to the side. Thus, Gouffé was easily pushed right into a side alley where Royal Godcall skulked about. What's the matter? Gouffé asked, perplexed. The Amethyst Rebirth's ladies are here, Royal Godcall said in a hushed tone. Gouffé momentarily did not understand what he meant. If they see you with us, your identity as 27,149 will get exposed, Royal Godcall reminded him. Then so be it. It doesn't really matter at this point. Gouffé actually regretted having to hide his other identity. If not for that, those people harboring hatred toward him would have long come to PvP with him. Going through those days without PvP was really tough. Bullshit. If they find out that you are 27,149, we won't have any game left. Royal Godcall immediately spat out the truth. Gouffé could not help but laugh bitterly when he thought of how these two had sworn to July and the other ladies that Gouffé was not 27,149 and was just someone aspiring to be a member of Young Masters Elite. Won't the babes still find out that it's Miles once they enter the map? War Without Wounds worriedly asked. We need to give Miles a makeover. Hold him down, Royal Godcall said to War Without Wounds. War Without Wounds used one hand to press Gouffé against the wall. Are you two asking for a quick death or something? Gouffé emotionlessly stuck his hand into his dimensional pocket. His fellow mercenaries were well aware of how fearsome Gouffé's twin incineration was, so the two knew that they would surely die if he successfully pulled his sword out. The two hesitated in carrying out their plan as their hearts filled with trepidation. What do you guys want me to do? Gouffé relented in the end after seeing their pitiful-looking faces. Just cover your face, change your attire, and don't use that sword. Royal Godcall knew that it was useless to force Gouffé, so he resorted to pleading instead. Fine, I'll do as you say. Gouffé no longer cared whether he was concealing his identity or otherwise. Since they earnestly requested it, he decided to help his fellow brothers in arms this one time. With that thought in mind, Gouffé took off Midnight Spirit robe and put on the flaming robe that he had last worn in Y City. He next took out the triangular black cloth he had worn ages ago and covered his face with it. Will this work? The two patted him on his shoulders in satisfaction. That's what I call brotherly. You mustn't pull out Moonlit Nightfalls no matter what, Royal Godcall reminded him once more. Hey, neither of you will purposely go easy in this match, right? Seeing how these two were acting, Gouffé could not help but express his concern. Don't worry, we're not that despicable, the two said in unison. Gouffé sighed deeply in relief. At least you guys are aware that you're despicable. You got to be despicable when it comes to flirting, let me tell you, scram. You rascal. Gouffé waved his hands off to Royal Godcall. When he saw that War Without Wounds was about to say something, he quickly interrupted him. Old men without gravitas can also get away from me. With that, Gouffé stalked off. Do I really look very old? War Without Wounds had a crestfallen look on his face as he asked Royal Godcall this. Not just your appearance, you're really old. This a young man's world now, Royal Godcall answered. Fuck off. War Without Wounds picked up a royal god call and threw him to the side. Since the three were busying over Gufei's identity inside the alley, they all failed to see what was happening outside the alley. Young Master Han, Sword Demon, and Brother Assist continued moving forward and eventually met up with the Amethyst Rebirth's ladies. Both sides knew that they would be fighting in the upcoming match, so they maintained distance from one another as they walked toward the Hall of Mercenaries. "Hey, where's Miles? Why isn't he with you guys?" Svelte Dancer suddenly asked the three men. "Miles?" all the ladies asked, stunned. "Don't you girls know? Miles is in the same mercenary group as these guys." But they're young masters elite," the ladies exclaimed stiltedly. Miles is the mage in Young Masters Elite. The close combat mage? Fugitive 27,149. There was uproar among the ladies, only Willow and Luo stayed by the side with a forced smile on their faces. The ladies exchanged glances as the three men calmly chose to walk forward without talking to any of them. "Miles is close combat mage 27,149? Lila had the most intense reaction out of all the ladies and tears rolled down her cheeks unabatedly. Ever since that incident by the street, she had stopped talking to Gufei altogether. Their relationship had evidently become frigid. Knowing his identity now clearly did not help to change this status at all. "So it really is him," July muttered to herself. She had always suspected him, only he had always managed to cover everything up. With the solid evidence this time, all the suspicious points she had detected on him once more became proofs of his other identity. Only Svelte Dancer do not have any clue at what was going on. "Didn't you all say that 27,149 is a hidden character? Why would he suddenly be Miles?" "That's right. Miles can't even defeat me, so how can he be such a mighty person?" June's reign usually took some time before she could make sense of things. "Miles couldn't beat you. Are you sure?" Svelte Dancer had fought with Gufei side by side many times and she had yet to see anyone survive his spells, be it his AoE attack or his melee attack. As June's reign told Svelte Dancer all the incidents in the past, the other ladies discussed the issue of Gufei being 27,149, almost forgetting that they were supposed to head to the PvP tournament venue. Finally, the sober Luo and Willow reminded everyone how much longer they had until the match started. Over by the Young Masters Elite's side, Young Master Han and the two finally met up with Gufei, Royal God Call, and War Without Wounds in the changing room. When the three saw Gufei's get-up, they expressed their surprise. Young Master Han asked, "Just what are you up to this time?" "Ask those two," Gufei glumly replied. The two happily told them everything. Young Master Han laughed coldly by the side as he patiently listened to their recount. Once they were done, he slowly and methodically dropped the other shoe on the two men. "Don't busy yourselves with things that don't matter." They already know Miles' other identity. "What? How can that be?" The two leapt up in their surprise. "When Svelte Dancer barged into our meeting that time, she learned that we and Miles are in the same mercenary group," Brother Assist reminded the two. "Why would she inexplicably barge in like that?" War Without Wounds asked, enraged. Royal God Call disappointedly slapped himself. "It's my fault for being so greedy." Had he not been greedy and traded his Windchaser's boots away to Svelte Dancer, she would not have excitedly run into their meeting and flaunt it to Gufei, which meant that no one would have found out Gufei's other identity. "Looks like wanting both wealth and love isn't a simple thing," Brother Assist voiced out his epiphany about life. "Since that's the case, I don't need this anymore." Gufei eagerly took the black cloth off his face. Royal God Call felt hurt, while War Without Wounds was despondent. As Gufei busied himself with changing his attire once more and readying his moonlit nightfalls, he failed to notice that the Amethyst Rebirth's guild channel was being bombarded with messages. The ladies were animatedly discussing the matter of Gufei being the close combat mage 27,149. Gufei was clearly online, yet he did not say a peep. "Does this guy ever look at the guild channel?" a lady asked earnestly. "He kept us in the dark for so long." Another lady sighed. "We must get Miles' signature when we head back," a die-hard fan declared. Hee. "So it turns out that we're already acquainted with 27,149 and have long seen his face. It's not really a loss even if we don't participate in the mercenary PvP tournament." Some of the ladies who had been fretting over this matter no longer felt very dejected. Gu Fei did not show himself on the guild channel, so some of the ladies decided to send him messages directly. Hey, your identity has been exposed. Willow had the good sense to be worried for Gu Fei. Do you have anything else to say now? July was quite resentful of Gu Fei denying her allegations time after time. Sigh. Looks like I won't be the only one teasing you after this. Luo did not intend to reveal Gu Fei's identity, probably for the same reason Royal God Call and War Without Wounds had chosen not to do so. HMPH. You sure hit it well. Evans felt Dancer had something to say. Miles, how can you be 27,149? June's reign had still not gotten there yet. As for the guild's mages, they were inquiring about how Gu Fei had managed to become a close combat mage. Gu Fei's hands were full trying to answer them, and he felt very troubled by this. He finally realized the many advantages of hiding his identity. Just come and kill me already, was what Gu Fei truly wanted to say to them. This carried on for quite some time. Gu Fei tried to reply to quite a few of them, yet new messages kept on coming in. The match timer started as the scene changed. The players were all teleported into the PvP arena, but Gu Fei's message notification never stopped pinging. Young Master Han swept his gaze over to the three dejected mercenaries of his and did not bother with them afterward. Looking around and seeing a vantage point, he promptly told Sword Demon and Brother Assist, "Let's head over there and have a look." The two nodded their heads in agreement. All three headed off toward the high ground as Brother Assist worriedly said, "If those three don't put in any effort, this match is gonna be a little troublesome." Just as he said this, Gu Fei caught up to them. With a hand tugging his sleeve and killing intent emanating from him, he asked, "Are we starting already? Why didn't you call for me?" Chapter 165, A Ditch. Young Master Han, Sword Demon, and Brother Assist turn around to stare at Gu Fei. Behind him, Royal God Call and War Without Wounds were listlessly walking over as well. "Can you really do this without hesitation?" Brother Assist asked Gu Fei, saying, "You're in the same guild as them, after all." Hee hee. Gu Fei chuckled, "Why don't you ask young master how he died?" Young Master Han rolled his eyes, visibly annoyed. "But it's a group of ladies, and each of them is as pretty as a flower," Brother Assist said instead. Gu Fei coughed, "Young Master doesn't lose to them in that aspect, either." Brother Assist and Sword Demon froze in place before they swept their eyes over to young Master Han and Gu Fei, heading to the side to snigger. Young Master Han's fists were tightly clenched, but Gu Fei quickly stopped anything from happening by widening his steps and waving the sword in his hand. Let's go. Let's go." With that, he used his fast movement speed to temporarily keep his distance from young Master Han. Gu Fei was the first to climb up the peak, looking far across the map. Only 26 players were participating in this match, so the PvP arena's size was not large, allowing Gu Fei to quickly discover the ladies' figures. The other 5 men reached the peak shortly after, gazing over to the ladies' direction as well. The ladies were gathered together and were not making a move. It was very different from their usual action of running all over the place without any specific direction. "What's the matter with them? Are they not coming over? What are they doing all gathered together?" Brother Assist asked. "Chatting." Gu Fei replied with a tinge of annoyance in his voice. "How do you know that?" Brother Assist asked. "My message notification is about to make me deaf." Gu Fei sighed in frustration. He had yet to open the guild channel, but he was already busy just by replying to all the ladies' private messages. 20 enemies were what this match pitted against young Master's elite, yet Gu Fei had to pretty much handle the entire Amethyst Rebirth's inquisitiveness by himself. Their gossiping nature was as mighty as Gu Fei's fighting prowess. Furthermore, he had to deal with 50 of such foes, truly a crazy task. Meanwhile, War Without Wounds seemed to have aged by 10 years, and Royal God Call repeatedly muttered to himself, "Grape, my grape." Gu Fei could barely handle all the messages being sent to him, but the two men's broken-hearted expression made him want to comfort them. "Hey, you two, don't feel so down. They are only a little curious about me, that's all. Every relationship begins with a little bit of curiosity," War Without Wounds said with a heavy heart. "And their curiosity toward you is definitely not just a little bit," Royal God Call quipped. "We're finished." War Without Wounds and Royal God Call looked at each other, a miserable smile forming on their faces. Gufei was speechless. Are we still fighting this match or what? Young Master Han bellowed. Let's fight, let's fight. Let us properly bring our chapter to a close with this breakup. Royal God Call stroked his bow. War Without Wounds patted his back. This world is truly lonely. It's a good thing you and me are brothers in arms. Royal God Call paused for a moment before saying, I think you should stop treating me as such. Honestly speaking, we don't share a common language, and there are at least 3 or 4 generation gaps between us. It isn't your fault, though. Just you being ancient. When War Without Wounds grabbed and tossed Royal God Call down the hilltop, the other 3 men sighed in relief. The world is finally quiet again. Get down here. I'll have a death match with you. Royal God Call, who had been tossed down the hillside, was now covered in dirt. Did people not say that friends were scarier than enemies? No one would be guarded against a friend patting his or her back. If even Gufei suffered from War Without Wounds ways, Royal God Call would naturally not be an exception. That was how the two started cursing at each other, with one up the hill and the other by the foot of it. All the while, Gufei was crazily sending out messages. Young Master Han, further assist, and Sword Demon exchanged looks and sighed. Seems like it is still up to us. 3. Talk to them some more. I guess that can be considered as you diverting their attention. Young Master Han instructed Gufei as the 3 began to descend from the hill and head toward the ladies' spawn point. Hey, wait for me. Gufei chased after them as he kept replying to the ladies' messages. War Without Wounds also went down the hilltop, cursing Royal God Call all the way. In young Master Han and the other two's eyes, the 3 men were no more than walking sacks of meat. We'll talk more after this match. Gufei sent this reply 100 times first before the ladies finally stopped sending him private messages. He heaved a huge sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off his forehead. It's finally over. Royal God Call and War Without Wounds were still arguing with each other as they lamented their poor fortune. One moment they were bickering, the next moment they were commiserating with each other. Gufei finally regained his sanity after finishing his task of replying to all the ladies' messages. He could not stand to hear what the two were telling each other, so he hurriedly asked on the mercenary channel for the whereabouts of young Master Han and the other 2 who had gone ahead first, swiftly making his way toward them. The ladies are done with their chit-chats, so it's probably time for them to move out. With the reckless and wild manner in which they advance, AO spells are essentially useless in dealing with them. It's better to head over there and slay them one by one. Svelte Dancer will most definitely jump out and block me. It's hard to tell what might happen if that woman takes me on while the rest of the ladies sneak up on me from the sidelines, so I better seize the initiative and finish off Svelte Dancer. As Gufei was pondering on what he should do, he saw Brother Assist squatting in a ditch straight ahead. From the way he looked about from time to time, Gufei judged that Brother Assist had the potential to join the Forever in Flowers Guild. Gufei called out to him, Brother Assist. Brother Assist turned his head back and smiled. You finished? Feeling somewhat awkward to answer his inquiry, Gufei simply jumped into the ditch and asked his own question, what are you doing here? Where are Sword Demon and young Master Han? They found somewhere else to stage an ambush, Brother Assist answered. Where? Gufei peeked from the ditch and stealthily looked around. Brother Assist poked his head out as well and pointed at a nearby mound with his hand. Young Master's there. I don't know where Sword Demon went. How are we fighting them? Gufei asked. Their movement is a mess, so we'll take care of them one by one when they fall behind. Brother Assist. Gufei smiled as he said, that's the way they are. Ah, someone's coming. Brother Assist's eyes sharpened as he whispered this, quickly pulling Gufei down to hide once more. However, someone among the ladies had pretty good eyesight and she exclaimed, ah, there are 2 heads over by that ditch. Gufei and Brother Assist exchanged looks. How did she notice us from over there? Gufei asked, shocked. Let's just move to another spot quickly. The other ladies will probably be coming here very soon. Brother Assist suggested. But it's good that they are coming over here. Gufei pulled out his sword. Oh. Brother Assist nodded his head in realization. Taking out his scepter, he was about to bless Gufei when he paused and asked, which of your stats should I boost? Speed. Gufei automatically replied. I don't have that yet, Brother Assist answered. Then what do you have? Health, strength, resilience, intelligence, and vitality. What's resilience for? Gufei asked. The term was not part of the 6 common stats found on a character. It increases physical defense. And vitality? Does it boost the spirit stat? No, that boosts magic defense. Oh, can't you just give me everything? Gufei asked. He had received a priest's heal before, but he had never gotten a knight's blessing yet. Nope, Brother Assist answered. I guess you can just dodge quickly. Gufei did not get to finish his words as he felt something flash by above his head, signifying that the mage had just thrown a spell on them. Gufei and Brother Assist would have to climb out of the ditch if they wanted to escape it, yet there was insufficient time to do so right now, so they crouched to the left and right respectively. Gufei was confident in his speed, but Brother Assist's speed worried him. While running onward, he looked backward. Just as he had expected, Brother Assist failed to escape the AO of the opposing mage's descending wheel of flames. Thankfully, it was just a normal flame wheel, so Brother Assist did not get insta-killed. Gufei sighed in relief. It was then that the temperature around him began to rise. A boom rang out as he got struck by a flame wheel as well. Feeling depressed, he straightened himself and asked aloud, "Who threw that? Could you throw it a little more accurately?" With his understanding of the ladies, he believed that this was someone throwing a spell off target, which resulted in it accidentally landing on Gufei's head. Indeed, a blushing ice glaze beyond the ditch cried out, "Ah, I'm so sorry. Xiao Bing, I remember that your accuracy isn't this bad," Gufei said as he clambered out of the ditch. 4 ladies stood waiting outside the ditch, 2 mages, 1 priest, and 1 warrior. Mages, priests, and warriors with normal stat point distribution had similar speed, so these 4 players ended up roaming the PvP arena together. This was how the Amethyst Rebirths members divided themselves into groups and how Gufei ended up being paired with Svelte Dancer most of the time when PvPing. After all, nobody else could match their speed in Amethyst Rebirth. Gufei did not know to say to them. Usually, he would not need to talk and would just sweep his sword to attack. Since he knew these people, he felt the need to explain himself. Gufei quickly realized that the worry Brother Assist had previously raised was sound. It was indeed very difficult for him to actually attack these ladies. Using young Master Han as an example was simply inapt. Young Master Han truly deserved a good thrashing, so not a sliver of hesitation had been present when Gufei had beaten him up. As for these ladies, Gufei needed to mentally prepare himself before he could move against them. Unexpectedly, the ladies reacted faster than Gufei. The warrior suddenly came back to her senses as she shouted, "Right, Miles is the enemy right now, so quickly attack him." "Oh, yeah." The rest of the ladies also woke up from their daze, and the mages immediately chanted, "Descending Wheel of Flames. Descend." Gufei did not move from his spot. The ladies' spellcasting was too wild, so he was afraid that he would end up getting hit by their flame wheels if he moved about carelessly. He figured that it was safer to wait until the flame wheels had appeared before moving. Fire formed in the air. Lifting his head, Gufei saw that neither of the flame wheels had missed their mark and dutifully dodged to the side as he raised the sword in his hand. Fireball. Shoot. Chapter 166. Internal conflict. Moonlit nightfalls glowed as a ball of fire formed from its tip before flying toward the 4 ladies. "Ah, quickly dodge it." The ladies were thrown into a tizzy. With the current standard of Parallel Worlds players, the most basic spell in the mage's arsenal, Fireball, was often disregarded by many. Most people would casually knock it away with anything that they had and view the spell as not a big deal even if it hit them. As for the ladies, they treated Gufei's spells, even Fireball, as something very dangerous. Thus, the 4 quickly dispersed when they saw the ball of fire heading their way. Fireball had a tracking ability, yet Gufei did not make his spell chase after any of the 4 ladies and the ball of fire was floating in a straight line instead. Gufei had always been using Fireball like how he threw his secret projectiles during his kung fu training session, and he would often throw the spell out by relying on his eyes and calculation instead of on the system's target lock-on assistance. Fireball. Shoot. Ice Glaze and another mage made use of the same spell to counter Gufei's. He extended his sword and unhurriedly sliced apart the 2 balls of fire heading his way, easily dissipating them. "Yeah." The female warrior lowered her head and sprinted over using charge. Gufei sidestepped to let her pass him and swung hard at the incoming figure with his sword, Twin Incineration. Incinerate. The blade formed a beautiful red arc, yet it cleaved nothing but empty space. The female warrior was currently standing next to the sword as she said in confusion, "Oh, dear. Did I estimate wrongly for the distance?" Gu Fei wanted to faint right there and then. The lady warrior had apparently calculated the distance wrongly with charge. The lady could simply not reach Gu Fei from where she had activated charge, so while Gu Fei's sidestep perfectly opened up an opportunity for him to strike her, the lady's poor execution of the skill had rendered his swing useless. "Let me do it again." The lady ran back to her original position. Gu Fei could do nothing but to hold his sword tightly in hand. Originally, he had wanted to slash at the warrior right away, but he ended up staring blankly at her retreating figure after hearing what she had just said. Once back in position, she bent her waist, lowered her head, and raised her sword again. After getting into that posture, she said, "Just wait for a little longer. The skill's cooldown time is about to end." The other three ladies confidently nodded their heads. Gu Fei was in tears. "Is this a PvP match or a mentoring fight? Here I come." The female warrior shouted and rushed forward using charge once more. Gu Fei was afraid of her misjudging the distance once more and wasting his effort, so he decisively took a step forward. Twin incineration. Incinerate. From the perspective of Parallel Worlds' verdict, no matter how many times a mage casted twin incineration, the spell would be unable to win against the warrior's charge skill. However, Gu Fei saw through the skill execution and his forward step essentially dodged the female warrior's charge. With his follow-up swing to the opponent's direction, his actions virtually cancelled out verdict. She got him. Ice Glaze and the other ladies rejoiced, fully assuming that Gu Fei's forward step would make him receive the full brunt of the charge skill. In the end, they only saw their guildmate catching fire as she went past Gu Fei and burning until she was nothing but a white light. How is that possible? The three ladies were left befuddled by what they had just witnessed. "I'm not gonna go easy on you lot anymore." Gu Fei flexed his forearm to show them that he was serious. The three ladies were standing separately, so Gu Fei could not cut down all three with one stroke of his sword. Thus, he threw out a ball of fire and dashed toward one of the ladies' direction. A whistling sound stopped Gu Fei's forward momentum, though. The sound of the traveling arrow gave a vague indication of the archer's attack power and speed, and Gu Fei believed that only one archer present in this match could shoot an arrow of this caliber. Turning his head over, Gu Fei saw that the ball of fire he had thrown to the female priest was dissipated by the arrow. Royal God Call then hurtled over from the arrow's firing direction and shouted, "Who dares to touch Grape?" "Oh, is this lady that Grape?" Gu Fei glanced at the priest and sighed in his heart, saying, "Royal, look at how much you've frightened her." Royal God Call hurtled over like a wild sparrow, standing in front of Grape while pointing his bow toward Gu Fei. Before anyone could say anything, he signaled Gu Fei like crazy by winking his eyes and moving his brows. Gu Fei originally wanted to praise Royal God Call for being able to shoot down his fireball, yet he lost the will to do so after seeing the latter's facial gestures. He simply sighed and asked, "What are you trying to do here?" "I'll fight whoever that dares to touch Grape." Royal God Call continued to act the part of a hero saving a damsel in distress. Before this matter could be settled, War Without Wounds also trampled over. His voice reached Gu Fei ahead of his figure. "Xiaobing and Zioing are under my protection. Anyone who dares to attack them will have to get through me first." Xiaobing naturally meant Ice Glaze. As for Zioing, Gu Fei did a quick check of Amethyst Rebirth's members list. Spotting a mage by the name of Singing Peach, he reckoned that this lady before him must be her. War Without Wounds, who had gotten near the ladies, opened his stance and bore the look of someone defending justice. The way the two looked at Gu Fei seemed to suggest that he was the one infringing upon the virtues of the fair maidens before him, angering Gu Fei to the point of speechlessness. The ladies were of course at a loss at what was happening. Ice Glaze meekly asked, "What is going on?" "It's an internal conflict." Gu Fei huffed. Royal God Call and War Without Wounds stood their ground firmly, as if what they were doing was logically sound. The three ladies looked at one another, unsure of what to make of the situation that they had found themselves in. Since that's the case, Gu Fei rolled up his sleeves, saying, "I guess I'll have to take you two down first." Royal God Call cried out, "Do you think it will be that easy?" With that, He fired off an arrow on homing projectile toward Gufei. Gufei flipped his sword over and knocked the arrow aside as he chanted, "Fireball, shoot." Royal God Call fired off double shot instead of dodging. One hit Fireball and the other one flew toward Gufei. Gufei rushed toward Royal God Call once he finished casting Fireball, dodging the incoming arrow with a deft twist of his head. Royal God Call smiled when Gufei broke eye contact with him and took that chance to turn tail and run. Fuck, Gufei cursed inwardly. The movement speed Royal God Call currently possessed was comparable to his, so chasing after him would be no different from when he was fighting with Sakura Sakamuni. It would just be a stalemate. War Without Wounds was trying to twist the situation into one where the ladies would feel indebted to him, so he hurriedly addressed the ladies over by the side, "Run away quickly. Leave him to us too." Gufei had been turned into the villain by the actions of these two idiots. Haha. "Come and get me." Naturally, Royal God Call knew that Gufei would be unable to do anything to him right now, so he delightfully taunted him. He ran toward the ditch and dashingly leapt over. However, Royal God Call disappeared from the surface with a whoosh when he did so. What happened? War Without Wounds asked in shock. Gufei, meanwhile, was laughing inside him. Evidently, Brother Assist, who was still hiding inside that ditch, had taken that moment to pull Royal God Call down when the latter was gleefully leaping over the ditch. Brother Assist might not have these experts' fighting prowess, yet a person in hiding would always have the upper hand when it came to pulling a fast one on others. Recalling that time when they drank the most expensive liquor on young Master Han's tab, Gufei had only drunk 3 glasses while Brother Assist had had a whole bottle after the first glass. He profited the most during that incident, yet Gufei took the blame for the whole matter. The deviousness of Brother Assist's duping tactics could be seen from that move alone. No matter how powerful an archer was, he or she would oftentimes be at a disadvantage when it came to melee. At this moment, Royal God Call was being held down in the ditch by Brother Assist and was no longer a cause for worry. Gufei raised his sword and turned about to close in on War Without Wounds. War Without Wounds was a warrior, so he clearly did not have the skill to kite Gufei. Thus, he firmly planted his feet to the ground and did not forget to tell the ladies in order to earn more brownie points, "Stand behind me." The ladies had long been muddled by the messy predicament they had found themselves in. Hearing War Without Wounds' words, they meekly hid behind him. Gufei sprinted toward War Without Wounds, as the latter separated his 2 hands each holding a claymore to his sides. He has taken the job class advancement to be a berserker. Gufei's heart tightened. He had since learned from his fight with Foherder that the warrior's dual-wielded cyclone was not easy to deal with. Foherder was ranked 6th on the warrior leaderboard, while War Without Wounds was currently ranked 3rd. Besides this, he was also known as the #1 warrior in the entire online gaming community, so his strength should be much higher than other warriors. As all these thoughts were running through Gufei's head, War Without Wounds had already bent low and dropped his swords, taking up a very familiar stance. "Here it comes!" Gufei cried out in his mind. He did not dare to increase the speed of his forward sprint and chose to halt his steps instead. He then raised his sword in preparation for unleashing an AO spell to interrupt War Without Wounds' attack. Unexpectedly, War Without Wounds lifted the swords from his sides and clasped both in front of him as he lowered his head. Fuck! Gufei was shocked to see War Without Wounds stomping toward him using charge. He quickly sidestepped to dodge the attack and was about to chant a spell when War Without Wounds suddenly jerked his head up, separated his claymores to his sides, and stopped his forward momentum by twisting his waist to meet Gufei head-on. Fuck! Gufei cried out audibly this time. Gufei did not know how far War Without Wounds' charge could reach, but he was positive that the latter had cancelled it before reaching the intended distance. His timing for the skill cancellation was nearly impeccable, placing him right before Gufei. What was worse was that War Without Wounds had immediately followed this up by unleashing Cyclone on the spot. A dual-wielded Cyclone had double the effect compared to the usual Cyclone. Using only one hand to take the blow would result in a player taking a gash from the other weapon before being flung outward by the skill's spinning. Gufei had already experienced this before and he could only think of one way to fully block this attack: dual-wield weapons. As well, characters without the dual-wielding mastery would be unable to deal damage with the weapons in their non-dominant hands, but the verdict for blocking still existed. When Gufei used the sword in his right hand to block the first blow, His left hand also reached into his dimensional pocket for his sacred flames of baptism. The clashing of metals rang out twice. This was followed by Gu Fei being hurtled outward by the cyclone spinning. His HP was dropping rapidly while mid-air. Although his weapons had managed to block the attacks, his blocking attempts had been judged by verdict as very weak. Thus, Gu Fei still received a lot of damage from the cyclone skill. This sucks. Gu Fei sighed in frustration. He might have been able to take all the damage had he been at full HP. Unfortunately, he had earlier taken damage from Ice Glaze's descending wheel of flames. Can Gu Fei survive his impending fall to the ground with how he is currently sailing through the air? Find out next time in the succeeding chapter of Virtual World, Close Combat Mage. Chapter 167, a PvP to decide the winner. Gu Fei was flung outward by Cyclone with only a sliver of HP. But two beams of holy light unexpectedly enveloped him before he landed on the ground. Gu Fei looked toward the two directions where the heal had come from and saw a pretty face from each spot. One heal had come from young Master Han, while the other one had come from Luo Luo. Clearly, these two priests did not expect either of them to make an appearance here. Receiving heal twice, Gu Fei's HP was no longer in danger of depleting. He lay on the ground and sighed in relief. Meanwhile, War Without Wounds anxiously ran over while shouting, "Do you even cherish your life? What is he even saying?" Gu Fei perplexedly did a kip up. "I don't get what you are trying to say." War Without Wounds muttered, "Why did you not dodge my cyclone and forcibly block it?" "How could I dodge it at that distance?" Gu Fei asked, discontented. He had blocked Cyclone many times in the past and knew that the skill could not be blocked or dodged at such a close range. After all, moving his wrist to block an attack was a lot quicker than moving his entire body. "I've even slowed it down. I especially left a gap for you to dodge it," War Without Wounds said. "Is that so?" Gu Fei asked, surprised. Truth be told, he had only concentrated on pulling out his second weapon to block the attack, so he did not notice the actual speed of War Without Wounds Cyclone. As he tried to recall it at this moment, it did seem as if War Without Wounds had activated his skill slightly slower than usual. "Didn't you see me wink at you?" War Without Wounds asked. "Did you?" Gu Fei was surprised once more. His focus was solely on War Without Wounds swords as he had been attempting to block the latter's cyclone. Finished with explaining himself, War Without Wounds boomed, "Now you know my prowess. Leave." With that, he turned around and gave Ice Glaze and the ladies a soul-stirring look. At the same moment, the three ladies who managed to catch up to Luo Luo were having a little squabble with her. "It's a good thing we arrived in time." "Miles nearly died," June's Rain said. "That's not right. Miles is our enemy right now." "Sis Luo Luo, why did you help him?" The other lady was clear of the situation. "It's a mistake." Bestowing heal on him became a habit, Luo Luo earnestly explained. Young Master Han smacked his forehead as he stood at a nearby peak. He could really not stand this convoluted scenario any longer. Gu Fei stood up. Peeling a tangerine and eating each piece, he asked, "So are we still doing this?" The ladies were at a loss at what was going on as well and they exchanged confused glances with one another. A normal PvP match would have both sides clashing right about now. The ladies were no fools and knew very well what sort of experts the members of Young Master's elite were. If they were to get serious, this match it would be less of a fight and more of a beating. Gu Fei alone could easily take care of the six of them. War Without Wounds whispered to Gu Fei, "Don't make things difficult for your brothers. Go into another location and wait a moment before you engage again." Gu Fei helplessly glanced over at young Master Han who was standing atop a hill, only to see the latter's expressionless face. He then turned his face toward the ditch. "How's Royal?" Brother Assist peeked from the ditch. "Royal said he's not here." "Ah!" A depressed wail came from over the ditch, followed by someone singing, "Why am I always the one getting hurt?" One, fading away softly as the person got further. While War Without Wounds obviously won quite a few points with the ladies present, Royal Godcall lost his face to the point of wanting to bury himself forever inside the ditch. Those who did not know what had truly happened automatically assumed that he had fallen into the ditch in an attempt to kite Gu Fei. "Oh, someone fell into that ditch." At this moment, June's Rain laughingly pointed at the ditch. "To actually fall into a ditch, what sort of expert is that?" Brother Assist despondently crawled out of the ditch as he threw a questioning glance at Gu Fei. asking him of what they should do next. Gu Fei looked toward Warrior Without Wounds and the latter thundered, "Retreat! Retreat now!" Gu Fei looked again toward young Master Han, who shrugged his shoulders helplessly and walked down the hill. Sword Demon appeared from the other side and also moved closer to them. "Retreat! Retreat now!" War Without Wounds repeated his demand with surety this time. Now that the conversation had moved to the mercenary channel, everyone could discuss this matter away from prying eyes and eavesdropping ears. "What now?" Gu Fei asked. "Let's retreat first." Young Master Han answered. "That's right. A gentleman is the one who does chivalrous deeds," War Without Wounds delightedly added. Still, the Amethyst Rebirth's members had opinions of their own. When Jun's Rain saw the 5 men proceeding to leave, she hurriedly called out to them, "Oi, where are you all off to?" "We're going to have a group meeting," Gu Fei replied. Young Master Han looked backward and swept his gaze all over before settling it on Luo Luo. She had previously represented Amethyst Rebirth in hiring his mercenary group. Although she was not the guild leader, she must at least hold sway in it. Thinking of this, young Master Han addressed her, "Since we're all so familiar with one another, let's make things simple for everyone and end this match in one place in one go." "Oh, in that case we will need to have a group meeting of our own as well," Luo Luo said. "The coordinates will be 110,125. "We'll be waiting for you ladies there," young Master Han informed her before bringing his mercenaries in the direction he had just mentioned. "You're all such brothers to me today. Tonight's drinks are on me," War Without Wounds excitedly said as they went on their way, playfully punching each of them before finally resting his hands across Gu Fei's shoulders and calling him his sworn brother. Gu Fei struggled out of War Without Wounds' hold for quite some time, yet he was just no match for the latter's strength. He asked Brother Assist, "Where did Royal run off to?" Brother Assist indicated with his chin a certain direction. When Gu Fei shifted his gaze over, War Without Wounds' huge head unintentionally blocked his line of sight. Casually nudging his head to the side, Gu Fei finally spotted Royal God Call, who was sitting atop a lone tree stump in the middle of an empty clearing, looking utterly miserable. The 5 felt amazed by what they were seeing as they walked toward their fellow brother in arms. Royal God Call stood up and met the 5 of them halfway, a look of utter embarrassment hanging on his face. Although he got dragged into the ditch by Brother Assist, he was still quite aware of how the situation had panned out. War Without Wounds had successfully demonstrated his fighting prowess by sending Gu Fei flying with his cyclone, while Royal God Call had fallen into a ditch like a loser. His heart was extremely unsettled right now. Royal God Call looked more and more like a child right now. The 5 adults did not know what to say in this situation, so they simply consoled him by ruffling his head. Brother Assist even rebuked War Without Wounds, "Look at you, an adult fighting with a child over some chicks." Including Royal God Call, the 6 finally reached the coordinates young Master Han had given the ladies. The rolling plains here had no forest, mounds, or even Royal God Call's hated ditches. "How are we fighting this match?" Gu Fei asked young Master Han. "Are you two willing to continue with the match?" Young Master Han instead asked War Without Wounds and Royal God Call. War Without Wounds chuckled, "We've had our fun. It's time that we get serious." He had no more demands at this point, especially after managing to show his might to the ladies when he dominated Gu Fei in the fight earlier. Royal God Call was not resigned to this, but he could only reluctantly agree to fulfill his duties to the group as it truly was time to decide the fate of this match. Since all are willing to play their part, there's no need for any tactic or strategy. "Let's just meet the enemies head on," young Master Han said in a relaxed tone. All nodded their heads. War Without Wounds, who was currently the most energetic out of everyone, consolingly patted Royal God Call's shoulder. "You can still let the ladies know how great you are by fighting them well." Royal God Call listlessly nodded his head. They did not have to wait long as the ladies quickly began to trickle in from every direction according to their speed and job classes. Naturally, Svelte Dancer was the first to reach them. "Are all of you here?" she loudly asked young Master's Elite. Gu Fei gave her a wilted look. "Do you not know how to count? Just you wait till I take care of you." Svelte Dancer bared her teeth, as if she was about to pounce onto Gu Fei and bite him to death. Amethyst Mercenary Group had 20 members. Gu Fei killed one off, so only 19 of them were making their way to the PvP field. Royal Godcall shoved off his deadened look with the lady's arrival and replaced it with a cutesy smile, waving and greeting all the ladies he was familiar with. War Without Wound's confidence skyrocketed after he had injured Gouffet with his cyclone earlier, so he refrained from acting familiar with the ladies like what Royal Godcall was doing and instead chose to stand coolly by the side. When Royal Godcall finished greeting all the ladies, he flashed them a bright smile and said, "It's time for a real fight, so I hope you won't blame us for what we are about to do." The ladies returned his smile. "You guys can't fault us, either. Let's begin if everyone is here." Young Master Han said faintly. Both sides stood across each other. Young Master's elite stood in a neat row while Amethyst opted for a two-row formation, the warriors and melee job classes in front and the archers, mages, and priests at the rear. At least, these ladies were aware of such a basic formation. "Let's begin. No point in dragging this out, unless you prefer us to make the first move?" Young Master Han spoke in a lackadaisical tone. "Attack." War Without Wounds wanted to let the ladies personally experience his might, so he eagerly rushed forward. The ladies with melee job classes in front calmly spaced themselves out, allowing the mages and archers from behind to initiate their attacks on War Without Wounds, who was leading the opposing mercenary group's assault. The sound of the female archers' arrows hitting War Without Wounds' armor resounded. Young Master Han quickly bestowed heal onto War Without Wounds, and the latter promptly activated his charge following this. Descending Wheel of Flames. Descend. Blazing Tree of 1,000 Inferno. Arise. The female mages deemed that casting AO spells would not be a waste even if they missed hitting War Without Wounds, as his companions were just right behind him. Being an expert gamer, War Without Wounds would of course not easily receive these spells. He immediately lowered his head following the ladies' chanting and continued charging forward. Successfully weaving through the ladies' casted spells, he smashed headfirst into them. The melee job classes immediately surrounded War Without Wounds just like what he wanted. Separating the claymores to his two sides, he prepared to unleash Cyclone. Behind, Gouffet took a few steps forward and pointed Moonlit Nightfalls toward the fighting crowd. Blazing Tree of 1,000 Inferno. Arise. Chapter 168, This is not a one-man fight. At a glance, anyone would think that War Without Wounds had released a skill that created a burning cyclone, since the flames that had spread throughout the ground seemed to sprout from his cyclone attack, even though the flames were from a spell that Gouffet had just casted. The flames seemed to borrow the airflow that Cyclone had created, as Blazing Tree of 1,000 Inferno swelled with War Without Wounds at its core. The ladies happened to be trying to surround War Without Wounds, so they all ended up being swallowed whole by the raging inferno together with War Without Wounds. Gouffet's AO spell could even insta-kill the skilled players of Corrals, so these ladies who were caught in the resulting conflagration would nationally be killed off instantly as well. All the members of Young Master's Elite only heard the steady ringing of the system notification, as it constantly updated them of the changes in kill points between the two sides. As white light constantly flashed within the sea of flames, Brother Assist could not help but gasp, "This is too up. I better record this down." Amid the red glow, one figure rushed toward Gouffet at a remarkable speed. Just as expected, Gouffet cried out internally. Of course, the one who had rushed out of the firestorm was Svelte Dancer. She was currently wearing the equipment that granted 73% fire resistance, which Gouffet had returned to her after the PvP match with Gorals. Learning that she had such an item, he had already expected her to survive his spell's damage output. Svelte Dancer rushed toward him as she took off the coat, just like what Gouffet had done when he flew through Corral's spell bombardment. Obviously, Svelte Dancer was planning to change her equipment into something that would increase her attack power. With a full agility build, just depending on her top grade dagger might not be enough to insta-kill her enemies. After all, Royal Gouffet shouted. Svelte Dancer's defense must be really low in that instant when she was taking off her equipment, so Royal Godcall's attack power should be enough to insta-kill her. However, the sound of an arrow in flight did not echo about. Looking backward, Gouffet saw Royal Godcall staring with unflinching eyes at Svelte Dancer as his nose bled incessantly. Svelte Dancer was indeed the mightiest pay-to-win gamer out there, Even her undershirt that became visible when she took off her equipment was very unique. It was form-fitting enough to accentuate her body's curvature. Royal God Call, the impure lecher, was immediately petrified by the sight, his nose unceasingly bleeding. By the time he returned to his senses, Svelte Dancer had already put on her other equipment. Really? Gu Fei eyed him contemptuously. Svelte Dancer's movement speed became even faster now that she had changed her equipment. In the blink of an eye, she was already upon Gu Fei. He lifted his sword and slashed, yet the reaction speed of Svelte Dancer on fleet foot was simply inhuman. Changing the angle of her attack, Svelte Dancer let the sword pass as she plunged the dagger in her hand toward Gu Fei. While Gu Fei's attack was deadly, his defense and HP were just like the average mage's. A simple basic attack from Svelte Dancer was enough to insta-kill him. A victorious smile spread across Svelte Dancer's face just as her dagger was about to puncture his skin. It was at this moment that a heavy blow connected to her nape. Svelte Dancer's action instantly halted as she was forced to stand stock still. Svelte Dancer felt somewhat bewildered. Despite knowing the skill, she had never been the recipient of it before. Bludgeon. Sword Demon's figure appeared at Svelte Dancer's rear. Expressionlessly tossing a wooden baton to his side, he took out Frost Memories. The dagger's attack power had already become quite average in the current stage of the game, yet Sword Demon was having a hard time finding a better replacement for it due to the weapon's additional traits. Gu Fei smiled at the surprised Svelte Dancer. This is a group PvP, so why are you treating it like a duel? With that said, he flipped his sword upward. Twin Incineration. Incinerate. To prevent any accidents, Sword Demon also backstabbed Svelte Dancer with Frost Memories. With frontal and rear attacks, Svelte Dancer could only unwillingly resign herself to her fate as her body turned into a stream of white light. As the system calculated the final score, Gu Fei swept his eyes through the PvP arena and saw that Svelte Dancer's coat had been haphazardly thrown to the ground. She's so wasteful, Gu Fei muttered. He then picked the coat up using his sword and settled it on his shoulder just as the system announced the final score. Young Master's Elite decimated the entire Amethyst, yet the group did not get a perfect score as it had one casualty. White lights engulfed the 5 men and teleported them out of the PvP arena and into the square by the Hall of Mercenaries. The ladies were nearby when those 5 appeared just outside the teleportation array, and they stared resentfully at Gu Fei. It seemed that they were a little hurt by how he had shown no mercy when he was insta-killing them with that one spell. Svelte Dancer glared at him with short, quick breaths. Clearly, she was dissatisfied by Sword Demon's ambush. Gu Fei was unfazed by this and merely threw the coat over to her. Don't you want your coat anymore? Svelte Dancer's expression slightly eased with the recovery of her expensive item. HMPH. There's still some conscience left in you, I'll give you that. It's a competition, so I have to do my best. Don't you all agree? Gu Fei called out to the rest of the ladies. TSK. All the ladies looked at Gu Fei with derision as they dispersed. Royal God Call and War Without Wounds were ecstatic beyond belief. Gu Fei's image to the ladies was not so high and mighty. After all, Brother Assist, being the pseudo-philosopher that he was, drew a moral lesson from this scene: never meet your hero. This expression holds plenty of truth. The mercenary group's match ended faster than usual, so quite a long time was left before the guild versus guild tournament would begin. All of them surrounded War Without Wounds. You mentioned you're treating us to a round of drinks? War Without Wounds' smile disappeared as he stared at Gu Fei. What happened just now? Give me an explanation. Gu Fei had insta-killed War Without Wounds along with the ladies in the last skirmish. I slowed my incantation to allow you to dodge my spell. He fibbed. Did you really? War Without Wounds asked, skeptical. Did you not see me wink at you? Gu Fei asked back, feigning surprise. Really? War Without Wounds' pitch rose an octave. You can ask the rest. Gu Fei wordlessly asked for the others' support. The others automatically nodded their heads in agreement. Oh. War Without Wounds finally believed him and was once more in high spirits. Let's go drinking, then. It's my treat. Wait a second. Royal God Call suddenly shouted. Everyone thought at first that Royal God Call was up to no good, yet his voice soon quivered in excitement. I've received a special reward. Ah. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Special reward was randomly awarded by the system to anyone who had attained a win in the PvP event and would directly send it into the selected player's dimensional pocket. The system had stated that the chances of being rewarded would increase the further participants went into the PvP tournament. Today's match was only the fourth round of the PvP tournament and, based on the players' discussion over the forums, the chances of being given special reward were extremely low. Royal God Call was a truly lucky fellow to be awarded with it now. What item is it? Everyone asked anxiously. Royal God Call carefully reached into his dimensional pocket and took it out slowly. It was a skill scroll. Permanent or one-time use? Brother Assist asked. While both were scrolls, the difference in their value was similar. The difference between day and night. Permanent. Royal God Call answered gingerly. Wow. All expressed their amazement. However, Royal God Call's expression drastically changed when he rolled open the scroll and checked the printed words over. It was as if he had ingested a 10,000-year-old poison as he furiously bellowed, "Are you kidding me? A mage skill scroll? System, are you blind? Can't you see that I'm no mage, but an archer?" He forlornly cursed the heavens. Brother Assist once more philosophized, "A thin line separates heaven and hell." Yet another adage that is true. Here, take it, Miles. Royal God Call languidly handed the scroll over to Goofy after expressing his vexation fully. Everyone, including the game noob Goofy, felt absolutely shocked by his action. The value of a permanent skill scroll was beyond exceptional. Even if Royal God Call could not use it, he could at least fetch a hefty price for it at the trade exchange or auction house. Knowing of this fact, he promptly returned the scroll to Royal God Call. "You should go sell it." "Sell, your ass. Just take the scroll since you can use it." Royal God Call tossed it back to Goofy. "The system has boldly given you a mage skill scroll, so there might be a mage out there that has gotten an archer skill scroll. You should hold on to this and swap it with that person." Goofy tossed the scroll over to Royal God Call once more. The online gaming expert Royal God Call had of course thought of such a possibility, but venting his frustration had been the only thing on his mind just then. Since Goofy had helped him a lot in these past few days, tossing the scroll to Goofy had seemed like a good deed that could make him feel better about himself and ease the frustration a little. Now that the rush of emotions he had felt calmed, he began to somewhat regret his impulsive action. "You guys are really too brotherly." War Without Wounds expressed his admiration. A really expensive item was forcefully being gifted by one and was solemnly being rejected by another. He felt that the two's upright character deserved his praise. In the next instant, however, everyone heard Goofy honestly admit, "I can't use that scroll." "What?" everyone asked, shocked. "It said I don't have lightning magic," Goofy explained. "So Miles has tried using the scroll upon receiving it." Everyone realized this truth. Does this mean that one needs to be a lightning mage before he or she can use the scroll? Brother Assist asked. "Seems about right. But I want to advance toward a water mage." "It is very useful to have the ability to reduce the enemy's speed," Goofy replied. He was very resentful toward those players who had a faster speed than him as well as those who could kite him. Royal's dream of having a dual job class character through the use of skill scrolls isn't possible, it seems. Brother Assist sighed. All nodded their heads in agreement. "Since that's the case, I guess I'll hold on to it and see if anyone is willing to trade for it." With this kind of development, Royal God Call felt at ease at taking the skill scroll back. "Head over to the trade forums and put up a post. See if anyone is amenable to such an exchange," Brother Assist suggested. MHM. Royal God Call nodded his head in agreement. He was also an old hand at this, so Brother Assist did not really need to point this out to him. "We've been discussing this for so long, but just what skill does the scroll give, anyway?" Brother Assist asked. "Electric Wall," Royal God Call replied. "The name sounds boring," Goofy sighed. He preferred instant cast spells, such as Twin Incineration, since they could be used with his Kung Fu. TSK. The rest of them exclaimed, "Take the scroll out and let us see it again." "Oi, are we drinking or not?" Young Master Han asked impatiently. Chapter 169, Black Clothed, Masked Men. The six made their way over to Ray's bar. Not only did War Without Wounds gain quite a lot of face in front of the ladies during Young Master's Elite's match with Amethyst, He also learned that Gufei's presence in the guild was not as worrisome as what he and Royal God Call had visualized. Thus, War Without Wounds was currently in an exceptionally good mood. As for Royal God Call, he was bitter that he had not been able to do the same as War Without Wounds and had only made a fool of himself by falling into a ditch, but the permanent skill scroll, although it was meant for a lightning mage, he had obtained helped ease his mood a bit. Moreover, he shared the same sentiment with War Without Wounds regarding the discovery of Gufei's place in the ladies' hearts. All in all, he felt somewhat consoled by everything that had happened. As for the other four men, their mercenary group winning another match and someone treating them to a round of drinks were enough to make them happy. In summary, their current drinking session was a tremendously exuberant affair. However, Gufei was more reserved with his drinking, as he had another guild match to participate later. From Sword Demon's past experience, all knew that getting drunk was possible in-game, but the others did not seem to be bothered by their upcoming matches and were drinking to their heart's content. Gufei felt somewhat jealous of this, as it seemed that life in a large guild was pretty good with the others not needing to bear so much responsibility. This was not the case for him, though, since Amethyst Rebirth would automatically lose 50% of its combat might if he drank himself into stupor. Only half an hour was left until the match began, yet no one seemed to have any intention of leaving and all were even getting into the drinking session more. Gufei kindly reminded everyone, "Guys, the guild match is about to start." Now that they were in the fourth round of the guild versus guild tournament and the various guilds had been halved 3 times over, the remaining guilds no longer needed to queue and wait for their turn to use the teleportation array and only had to take note of the time in order to not be late. Brother Assist and Sword Demon did not react to his reminder since they were not part of any guilds. Upon hearing that, young Master Han raised a glass to his lips while glaring intently at Gufei. Gufei's heart thumped faster as he suddenly recalled that he was the one who had personally eliminated young Master Han's guild yesterday. Gazing at the next person, War Without Wounds said to him, "My guild has been eliminated long ago." War Without Wounds guild was called Home of the Warriors, and it was more like a club for aficionados. The guild size was not large and its job class composition was extreme imbalanced. The members lacked ambition, too. In short, they possessed all the traits that contributed to an incompetent guild and none of the qualities that was essential for a strong guild. Without someone like Gufei or Svelte Dancer who had monstrous PvP prowess to help around, Home of the Warriors was immediately eliminated from the guild versus guild tournament in the second round by a second-rate guild. The last one was Royal God Call, who was currently calculating inside what he could get out of the skill scroll reward he had gotten. "Royal, are you not going to participate in a guild match?" Gufei asked. Royal God Call was smiling smugly at Gufei's inquiry, indicating that losing one person was not that big of a deal for a guild the size of traversing 4 seas. "Your luck is pretty good today. Perhaps, you can get another skill scroll?" Gufei cajoled. Royal God Call immediately got up. "Let's go." The ladies of Amethyst Rebirth were starting to call for Gufei. Despite their method of fighting not changing in any way, the guild members would always gather 30 minutes prior to the match's start for July's introduction of the opposing guild. The ladies believed that knowing the opponents would better increase their chances of winning, yet they never gained any deep understanding from the not-so-detailed report of July. In fact, they were usually more focused on how pleasant sounding the names of their upcoming opponents were than on how to properly deal with the opponents. Gufei hurriedly entered the teleportation array. Upon his arrival to the changing room, all the 50 ladies glared daggers at Gufei in unison, obviously still holding grudges at how harsh he had treated them during their last PvP match. "Hey!" He casually greeted them and proceeded to lay low in a corner. July began to introduce the opposing guild for today's match. Level 4 Cloud Herder Guild with 500 members. The guild leader is a warrior called Foe Herder who is pretty high up on the warrior leaderboard. As Gufei was thinking that the name sounded familiar, July continued, "Something I must mention is that Cloud Herder Guild has a mercenary group. It is the same one that lost to Young Masters Elite. Everyone knows about this, right?" all the ladies said, oh, before shifting their gazes toward Gouffé, who merely smiled. I hope Comrade Miles would treat them as viciously as he treated us earlier, July said with a straight face. Of course. I treat my enemies as cold as a winter's day, Gouffé replied. Does that mean that you treat your companions as warm as a summer's day? Let's see you do that, then, Luo remarked. Carry on with the report, please, Gouffé simply said. As the guild leader, July tactfully refrained from joining Luo and the ladies into teasing Gouffé and instead chose to continue presenting the information about the Cloud Herder Guild's high-level members and job class composition. July's report simply could not hold a candle to Brother Assist's detailed report, which also pointed out the unique individuals to be wary of. Still, she managed to cover a lot of details. Unexpectedly, the opposing guild's PvP participants remained at 50 even as the match was about to begin in 5 minutes. The ladies found this to be very strange. When everyone was teleported into the PvP arena, the 500-strong Cloud Herder Guild still only had 50 men present. Instead, Amethyst Rebirth was the one that had hit 51 with the inclusion of Gouffé. Just what is up with Cloud Herder? The ladies discussed the perplexing matter among themselves. Gouffé meanwhile was clear on why this had happened, immediately understanding what young Master Han meant with affecting the large-scale PvPs with his strategy. Cloud Herder Guild only sent out 50 men, not because its 450 men were absent but because it had intended this. The reason behind this was that Cloud Herder's men were fearful of the small groups and guilds fighting style that had been dubbed on the forums as the Huge Kite. Cloud Herder's mercenary group had fallen under such a strategy before. Since their current opponents had managed to beat Yunduan City's number 2 guild, Corrals, by using the same strategy yesterday, every Cloud Herder Guild's member could not help but feel apprehensive right now. The guild members firmly resolved to not be victimized of the same tactic. After a thorough investigation of Amethyst Rebirth, they had discovered that, besides the indomitable Svelte Dancer, its members were average. All the experience points she had gained in the last few days of the Guild vs Guild tournament and mercenary PvP tournament shot her up to level 42, obtaining that coveted throne of the one and only player at that level. She was now the highest level player in the entire server of Parallel World. They also learned that this Guild of Beauties had one male member. All of them were positive that some extraordinary reason for such a unique exception must exist, so they resolved to take special note of this said male player. The Cloud Herders members tried to single out a few other individuals of Amethyst Rebirth to come up with better strategies to deal with them, but honestly speaking, the majority of Amethyst Rebirth would definitely be the weakest guildmates if they were to join Cloud Herder. For these players to receive special attention from Cloud Herder, it was essentially similar to treating the trees and grass as actual soldiers. Whatever the case might be, Cloud Herder had still opted to send out just 50 players for this match to defend against the Huge Kite strategy. By doing this, they had wholly fallen for young Master Han's ploy for the entire PvP event of Parallel World. Amethyst Rebirth actually benefited from young Master Han's ploy. Are you really okay with making a bridal dress for the others too? Gouffé had actually posed this question to young Master Han back then. If I were you, I would intentionally lose this match to Cloud Herder Guild, so that my overarching strategy would take an even bigger step toward perfection, young Master Han opined. As Gouffé became absolutely speechless of his selfish suggestion, young Master Han continued, naturally, you would be unwilling to do anything like that, so just go ahead and kill all you want. Let them experience the gap between experts and mediocre players and the true meaning of being oppressed. Also, cover your face. Not letting them know that you are part of our mercenary group is beneficial to us. Covering his face was not a big deal, so Gouffé pulled out a black scarf and tied it to his face, quickly drawing the ladies' attention to him. Why are you covering your face? The ladies asked. It's a strategy, not that any of you would understand, Gouffé shrugged their question off. TSK. The ladies clicked their tongues in annoyance. Our opponents have the same number as us, so let's not run around like headless chickens and fight them head on instead. Gouffé suggested. Sure. The ladies agreed. Those with fast speed immediately matched their pace with everyone else's. Svelte, come back. The guild has decided to advance together. Gouffé sent Svelte Dancer this message. When did the guild decide that? Svelte Dancer asked back. Moments ago, Gu Fei replied. Fuck, you should have told me earlier. I already have the enemy in my line of sight. Svelte Dancer glumly made her way back to the pack. The ladies would look quite imposing with them all gathered together if it were not for their constant chattering. After walking for how many meters, the ladies actually realized something. Since we are not charging at them at our pace, why not just wait for them to make their way to us? The rest of the ladies immediately agreed to this suggestion, so they stopped proceeding forward and proceeded to set up their PvP formation, patiently waiting for their enemies to head over to them. In no time at all, Cloud Herder Guild's 50 men emanating strong killing intent arrived by the Amethyst Rebirth Guild's PvP formation. With this one for all for one mentality, everyone of Cloud Herder was determined to not leave one guildmate behind and let the enemies earn a kill point. Seeing that their opponents were set up before them, the Cloud Herder's men high-spiritedly charged toward them together. Archers, mages. July shouted. The archers of Amethyst Rebirth moved forward and fired off arrows. Cloud Herder Guild also called for its archers to unleash their attacks, and a uniform row of arrows went sailing toward Amethyst Rebirth Guild. The result of this exchange of arrows was quickly revealed. 2 ladies of Amethyst Rebirth died. Amethyst Rebirth's attack was weak and uncoordinated, which was a stark contrast to the opposing guild's attack. Both sides' priests began to get busy. The 2 opposing sides were evenly matched in terms of numbers, yet Amethyst Rebirth's priests were busier than Cloud Herder's. As such, quite a few of Amethyst Rebirth failed to be saved in time. The distance between the 2 sides had entered the mage's attack range, so the mages of both sides made their way to the front of their respective PvP formations and chanted spells. The difference between the 2 forces was once more seen in this exchange. The archers of both guilds had adjusted their targets, beginning to fire off arrows at the opposing mages to interrupt their spell casting. The Amethyst Rebirths once more earned some casualties from this exchange. Meanwhile, the warriors of Cloud Herder also moved to the front of their PvP formation to shield the mages from the enemy's attacks, as the priests continued bestowing heal on them. Amethyst Rebirth lacked awareness in this aspect, only copying Cloud Herder's action upon seeing it. The PvP was constantly changing at a moment's notice, so how could such hesitation not cost the lives of the players involved? By the time Amethyst Rebirth thought of employing the same move, the PvP had already advanced to the next stage. A certain black-clothed, masked man within the Amethyst Rebirth's formation drew the attention of Cloud Herder Guild. His attire is quite unique, wonder what he's up to? Cloud Herder's men thought similarly about the man, but they did not just focus their attention on him as all were moving according to their duties. Cloud Herder's teamwork was great, as its many archers could instantly coordinate their attacks to target specific opponents. Fortunately, Gu Fei had already expected this situation to unfold. Bellowing to a certain lady above the PvP den, he then calmly chanted, "Blazing tree of 1,000 inferno. Arise! Descending wheel of flames. Descend!" The 2 guilds' archers released their arrows just as the mages of both sides chanted. While the chanting of the Cloud Herder's mages was uninterrupted, the chanting of the Amethyst Rebirth's mages was promptly interrupted by the enemy archer's rain of arrows. Hearing Gu Fei's bellow, Svelte Dancer used her swiftest speed to arrive in front of him. She deflected most of the arrows heading his way and simply tanked the others with her body when she could not stop them in time. Svelte Dancers had top-grade equipment with high defense stat, so taking a few arrows would not result into her death. The Amethyst Rebirth's formation broke as all the ladies dispersed in every direction to dodge the incoming spells. The Cloud Herder's formation meanwhile remained in place. Gu Fei was the only mage of Amethyst Rebirth who had managed to complete his chanting. One mage's spells were not worth worrying about, was the mature assessment of Cloud Herder's men as they disregarded him entirely and focused their attention on making use of the chaos to take down the entire Amethyst Rebirth. They did not even bother to move away as a flame wheel emerged above their heads and tiny flames sprouted beneath their feet. Only the Cloud Herder's priests moved to ready their staves in response to the spell attack. Hence, once Gu Fei's 2 spells went into effect, a feeling of vacuity suddenly overcame Cloud Herder's many members. How did our perfect 50-man formation become so spacious and empty in an instant? My mate was just right beside me moments ago, why is he gone in the blink of an eye? Where are the others? They are no longer near me. The remaining players of Cloud Herder could only see the vividly glowing fire around them while they were pondering questions like so. By the time they realized that their guildmates were no longer around, they had already received the infallible system announcement. The system repeatedly updated its scoreboard until it finally announced the kill points of Cloud Herder and Amethyst Rebirth, 14 against 36. The Amethyst Rebirth's ladies cheered, as the Cloud Herder's men were stupefied by this shocking outcome. Go! Gufei nudged Svelte Dancer's back. She nodded her head and sprinted toward the enemies. Gufei followed her closely behind as the fleeing ladies suddenly began to attack the opponents in their individual ways. Gufei had casted his spells in the middle of Cloud Herder's formation, cutting the 50-man group into just one column on either side. These two columns were still neatly lined up. The Cloud Herder's men were skilled in this field, after all. Before the enemies could regain their senses, Svelte Dancer and Gufei had already begun their massacre. The scores were constantly getting updated. By the time the ladies that had dispersed from their formation made it to the final skirmish, Gufei and Svelte Dancer had already killed off almost half of the Cloud Herder's remaining members. Gufei retreated to the side to eat a banana with his mana all depleted. Svelte Dancer's speed slowed as well with her fleet foot ending. Still, the ladies now held numerical superiority, so the Cloud Herder's members fell one after another. Finally, only guild leader Faux Herder was alive. As an expert player, Faux Herder naturally remained calm and composed in the face of an encirclement of dozens of players. Extricating himself from the loss was impossible, and wallowing about it was even more pointless. The black-clothed, masked man was the only person in Faux Herder's mind right now. His attire looked familiar, and the weapon he was holding seemed to be a sword. If that was the case, Faux Herder tried his best to search for Gufei's figure amid the crowd, yet the latter had already distanced himself from the fight and was currently being shielded from view by the ladies as he ate a banana. Just as Faux Herder was feeling aggrieved, he suddenly heard a man's voice come from within the crowd of ladies, "Leave this guy to me." A masked man came forward in the next instant and stood right before Faux Herder. The black scarf on his face was still there, yet the man was no longer wearing a black robe. His appraisal identified the man's new attire as the flaming robe. The weapon in his hand was no longer a sword as well, and it was now a Chinese broadsword. Appraisal of it indicated that it was called Sacred Flames of Baptism. Was I mistaken? Faux Herder began to have misgivings. When a thought crossed his mind, he immediately asked, "Why is your face covered?" "It's a strategy." Gufei honestly replied. "Strategy?" Gufei only nodded his head and firmly held the Chinese broadsword before him. Faux Herder took a step back and dropped both his hands to his sides. Cyclone, Gufei thought to himself. Battling up to this point, Faux Herder unexpectedly still managed to reserve enough rage points to unleash Cyclone. His fighting experience was indeed not insignificant. Faux Herder's Cyclone usage was unique in how he would activate it when his opponent was a little further than usual, preventing his target from preemptively interrupting his attack. The only drawback to this was that due to the increase in distance, the skill activation must be done earlier. This made it much easier for the enemy to dodge it. How could Gufei still not know the crux to breaking this tactic? He had actually darted forward to entice Faux Herder into unleashing his skill, intending to dodge it at the last second and slay the latter after Cyclone ran its course. Faux Herder, who had indeed fallen for his feint, rotated his wrists to activate Cyclone. Gufei could clearly see his action and readied himself to evade it. Unexpectedly, an even faster figure appeared behind Faux Herder and battered his nape with a stiff baton. Faux Herder's skill execution instantly stopped as the person smiled at Gufei. "This is a group PvP, why are you treating it like a duel?" Gufei helplessly smiled back at her as he waved to the ladies surrounding them. "Everyone, all together now." Fireballs, arrows, Gufei's Chinese broadsword, and Svelte Dancer's dagger landed on Faux Herder, turning him into a beam of white light. This was the scene that ended today's guild match. Over by the teleportation array outside the main hall of guilds, the Cloud Herder's members were dejectedly shaking their heads. All could tell that they had lost this match when Faux Herder was teleported out. "Motherfucker. I just got ambushed without knowing it. I thought it was a one-on-one duel." Faux Herder was crestfallen. Thinking that he was the main character in that setting, he had actually thought that Svelte Dancer's words were for him. In a short while, The victorious Amethyst Rebirth was also teleported outside after the system finished calculating the match result and awarded each member accordingly. Though Herder had long been keeping an eye on Amethyst Rebirth's exit to the PvP arena. Upon seeing that they were finally teleported outside of the PvP arena, he immediately approached them and called out to Gufei, "Hey, that brother over there." Gufei ignored his call and merely ran off with a brush of his sleeves. He was so fast that Herder immediately gave up the thought of chasing after him and could only beseech the Amethyst Rebirth's ladies, "How may I address that brother who has just left?" All the ladies looked at one another. This man was obviously similar to Carouse's guild leader, looking to poach Gufei after recognizing his high spell damage. "What are you trying to do?" "That guy is from our guild." Svelte Dancer directly revealed his insidious intention. Though Herder brushed off her accusation with a smile, "I just wish to get to know him a little." "What's there to know about him?" "We can all tell what you really want, so back the fuck off." Svelte Dancer drove him away. Though Herder could only helplessly return to his guild side and say to several members, "Find out what you can about that mage." It shouldn't be difficult to find information about the only male player of Amethyst Rebirth, right? "I've actually never heard of him before," someone commented. Everyone was already aware that an all-female guild existed in Yunjuan City after that incident with No Smile, yet no one knew that a male player was actually hidden within it until now. Go ask the opponents Amethyst Rebirth met in the previous rounds. Information might be gathered from them, though Herder changed his order, adding, "Maybe these guilds will know more about him." Saying that, though Herder suddenly recalled something as he abruptly slapped his thigh, "Fuck." When I was inquiring about how Carouse's players had lost their match, they did not even mention anything about such an op mage. Those motherfuckers are also trying to recruit him. We gotta move fast. Get the whole guild to find out more about that guy. The members of Cloud Herder hurriedly inquired what they could to whomever they could. In that instant, a new legend of another black-clothed, masked man rapidly spread all over Yunjuan City. Chapter 170, Endlessly searching for him through the night. People had long known that talent was the most valuable commodity in the 21st century. There were three types of talent necessary in establishing a guild: a natural-born leader, a smart advisor, and an indomitable fighter. Only one player needed to possess the talent for leadership in a guild. The number of players that had to possess the talent for strategizing was dependent on the guild size. Lastly, many players that had the talent for fighting were necessary in a guild. Fortunately, a majority of the players in MMOs could be considered as possessing the talent for fighting. Still, finding a mage like Gufei who was akin to a Terminator with his ability to easily insta-kill anyone among the people with talent for fighting was difficult even in a large guild. Terminator-like individuals possessed fighting prowess far beyond others. When one such person became the core of a mercenary group, that group could rally around him or her and easily dominate a PvP. Many players could be slayers, yet only a few could become Terminator-like. This sort of definitive expert had the strong backing of real-world currency, luckily acquired some kind of hidden quest, or was helped build a strong character by a well-bonded and close-knitted group. Using some of the current 5 unyielding experts as examples, Svelte Dancer belonged to the type that was backed by real-world currency, while Southern Lone Blade and Deep Waters were 2 professional gamers that could probably belong to the type that was supported by a group of like-minded individuals. As for Gufei, he belonged to the type that had gotten lucky and obtained a hidden quest. In fact, he would easily step into the 5 unyielding experts domain if his full set of kung fu skills was included into the equation. Therefore, it was easy to understand why all those guild leaders could not forget him after witnessing his high spell damage. As the mage Gufei went to sleep that night, the 2 large guilds, Carouse and Cloud Herder, held an emergency meeting for finding out his identity. Carouse's players had tried doing this yesterday, yet Amethyst Rebirth had not given them any answer even now. Brave Surge, the guild leader, was hesitant on pursuing the matter further with Amethyst Rebirth, as he felt that it would be far too awkward to do so when everyone could see that he was trying to poach the male mage of Amethyst Rebirth to his guild. Amethyst Rebirth's refusal to give any information about the male mage was therefore expected. When Brave Surge heard the news of Cloud Herder Guild's defeat today to Amethyst Rebirth, he knew that he could no longer slowly probe about the Ob Mage, as the Cloud Herder's men would surely be doing all they could to inquire about the mage as well. This was why he had gathered his men tonight to discuss how they could uncover the mage's identity more quickly. In the two large guilds' respective headquarters, the guild leaders gave an identical message: we need to move faster than Corrals, Cloud Herder, in uncovering information about the Amethyst Rebirth's male mage. Go make contact. Even the plan they had come up with was similar. Plan A, contacting Amethyst Rebirth directly, is the most efficient method, so find a way to do this. Plan B, contact Amethyst Rebirth's previous PvP tournament opponents, someone among them might know something about the mage. Plan C, talk to everyone in Yunjuan City, perhaps someone knows this mage. Both parties even emphasized on the same thing: do not tell others of this mage's fighting prowess. Utmost discretion is needed when looking for information about him to prevent other guilds like Corrals, Cloud Herder from getting wind of it. Still, the two guilds' way of doing things had some differences. Corrals lived up to its name as a large guild filled with players with all sorts of different talents. Once Plan A of making contact with Amethyst Rebirth directly was suggested, several sets priding themselves as expert pickup artists promptly volunteered for this job. They confidently claimed that the Amethyst Rebirth's ladies would be thoroughly smitten by them, that they would willingly provide them the required information. Upon hearing this, Brave Surge swiftly agreed to the set's proposed reverse honeypot approach. He even promised these studs that if their wooing attempts turned out to be successful, all the expenses that they had incurred while wooing the girls would be fully compensated by the guild. Meanwhile, Cloud Herder, the other guild which was also interested in poaching Goofy, was carrying out their plan A in a different way. Owing to the fact that the members of Cloud Herder considered women to be on par with men when it came to playing games, they had decided to send female players of their own to infiltrate Amethyst Rebirth. Once these spies managed to join Amethyst Rebirth as new members, all they had to do was look through the guild's members list to find out the identity and IGN of the mystery mage. A very simple plan, indeed. Herder was very agreeable to this simple idea and told the female players that he would find a way to repay the losses that they would incur for quitting Cloud Herder Guild. As for their plan B of contacting Amethyst Rebirth's previous PvP tournament opponents, both sides' actions were almost identical. The two guilds searched Parallel World's official website for the guilds Amethyst Rebirth had faced in the first and second rounds of the Guild vs. Guild tournament. Those two guilds were small guilds at level 1 that Brave Surge and Herder barely paid attention to, so finding out the members' names in both guilds was bound to be difficult. Fortunately, the identities of the two small guilds' leaders could be learned from the main hall of guilds. Brave Surge and Herder seemed to enter the main hall of guilds simultaneously. As leaders of large guilds in Yunjuan City, they might not be close with each other, but they at least knew of each other's existence. Seeing how they were heading toward the same direction, the two could easily tell that the other had the same goal for going there. Merely exchanging polite smiles without one another, they busied themselves with the task at hand. The two started to look up information on Amethyst Rebirth's first round opponent in the Guild vs. Guild tournament, the unbeatable Under the Heavens Guild, and tried adding its guild leader as a friend, but sadly the guild leader was currently offline. As for the guild going up against Amethyst Rebirth in the second round of the tournament, Brave Surge and Herder's hearts thumped when they saw the name of its guild leader, Sakura Zakamuni. This guild leader was actually a powerful expert that was ranked pretty high on the Archer leaderboard. Even if he was online, he would unlikely be reachable. Nevertheless, the two guild leaders still gave adding Sakura Zakamuni on their friends list a try and subsequently failed. Downtrodden, the two encountered each other once more on their way out of the main hall of guilds. Thinking that the other must have met the same fate, each of them felt a little better about what they had just experienced. Actually, the two only had to find a woman to add Sakura Zakamuni on her friends list and they would succeed in contacting him, yet they were unfortunately unaware of this fact. This could not be blamed on them, though. Who would even think that the setting of Sakura Zakamuni's friends list was set in a way that only a female could add him as a friend? Time was needed before they could advance further in this part of their plan, so the two guild leaders proceeded to execute Plan C and promptly rallied a large number of their men to roam Yunjuan City's streets and randomly ask players about the Mage. Did you know that Amethyst Rebirth has a male player? was the theme of the two guilds players' questions, which would usually earn them two kinds of reaction. The first, Amethyst Rebirth is now accepting male players? The second, fuck, why are you people repeatedly asking me this question? Who are you guys? Given how this particular operation lacked thorough preparation and that players would constantly move around in the city, quite a lot of them had ended up being asked this question many times. Some of the weak-willed players could no longer stand this repeated inquiry and ran off to the nearest log-off points to escape. That night, these two large guilds questioning had caused Yunjuan City to hold the lowest amount of online players ever since the official release of Parallel World. However, the more irritating thing here was that the two guilds had not gotten any results despite such a large-scale deployment of manpower. During their search, some were fortunate enough to meet the players who had clashed with Amethyst Rebirth in the first two rounds. The resulting conversation was as follows: have you guys fought with Amethyst Rebirth before? Yeah. Both guilds members would get excited whenever they met players who gave out this reply, as this meant that they had finally found the right individuals to ask. In such cases, the follow-up question would come almost immediately: do you know that Amethyst Rebirth has a male mage? Of course. The guildmen's eyes overflowed with tears as they hugged one another, thinking that the matter was finally about to end. What's the mage's name? They pricked their ears attentively, just in case they missed what was being said. How would I know? Was the reply that they got. The resulting outpouring of words would make even a sailor blush. The two large guilds spent the whole night asking questions as if they were hosting a quiz game. They wore themselves out so much that they had actually forgotten that there was a good chance that those from Unbeatable Under the Heavens and Forever in Flowers were also unaware of the Op Mage's identity just like them. A man of Jianghu, filled with legends, yet none knows his name. Many of the two guilds players started visualizing a blurry, black-clothed man before them whenever they talked about him. Encountering each other in a certain tavern while taking a rest, this was already the 47th time Brave Surge and Foe Herder had crossed paths. Prior to this, they had met for 46 times in 46 different locations all over Yunjuan City. Being guild leaders, they naturally had to participate in the quiz game to set an example for their respective guild members. Meeting at this moment, the original feeling of rivalry between them was long gone and was replaced by mutual sympathy for each other. Take a seat. Brave Surge spiritedly said to Foe Herder, yet his voice betrayed his exhaustion. Foe Herder sat down across Brave Surge, his face haggard as he waved a hand to the bartender. One, please. How are things on your end? Brave Surge asked. What are you asking me for? It's the same situation over here, Foe Herder replied. Asking this sort of question was redundant since the answer was already written on the two guild leaders' faces. Both men sighed deeply, just as Foe Herder's liquor was brought over. Cheers to your hard work. Foe Herder raised his glass toward Brave Surge. You, too. Brave Surge gave a wry smile as their glasses clinked and drained their liquor in one go. I'm baffled. How can such a powerful player not even have a bit of prestige to him? Foe Herder wondered aloud. Brave Surge shook his head. Maybe, it's because few people are playing at night. Perhaps, the chatter in the morning will bring more result. Perhaps. Foe Herder agreed to his hypothesis, as his plan to have a few female players infiltrate Amethyst Rebirth had been stalled due to this. The Amethyst Rebirth's ladies were not online in the wee hours. The pickup artist team that Carouse had sent walked about the city, hoping to create a chance encounter with the ladies. They asked every woman they met if they were of Amethyst Rebirth, turning their heads and leaving once they heard them say no. Very quickly, many ladies in Yunjuan City were angered by this. What was that all about? So what if I am not from Amethyst Rebirth? Must I be looked down upon just because I am not from that guild? Just this act alone had offended almost all the ladies in Yunjuan City, yet these flirts did not know of this. From here onward, they would no longer be able to pick up any ladies within Yunjuan City. As for those ladies Cloud Herder had sent as spies, they found no one in the Amethyst Rebirth's headquarters. The female guild leader was not online as well, so these spies sat by the door like idiots to show their sincerity of joining the guild. These spies were later mistaken for members of Amethyst Rebirth by those pickup artists that Carouse had sent, who tried their best to pander and cajole the good senses of these ladies. In the end, These flirts almost got into a fight with the spies when they found out what was really going on. Both guild leaders kept shaking their heads and sighing upon the mention of this incident. It had happened during their 40th encounter, with both hurriedly resolving the situation before it escalated. At the same time, both parties learned of the method that their rival was attempting, resulting in either side enacting the same plan as well. The only difference was that Carouse had quickly managed to find female spies on their end, while no men from Cloudherder were willing to attempt the reverse honeypot approach after seeing how the local ladies were treating those studs, despite Cloudherder promising great rewards for those who would succeed. Even now Cloudherder was feeling quite indignant about how things had unfolded. "So, what are you gonna do next?" Brave Surge asked. "Well," Cloudherder hesitated. "What's there not to say? Even if we withhold information here, I guarantee that it will just be a matter of time before either of us find out about the other's plan. And I assure you neither of us will have an edge in recruiting that person if this goes on." "That's not it. I'm actually still thinking of what to do next," Cloudherder admitted. "Randomly asking around isn't the way, either." "How many players are there in Yunjuan City? 10,000? 20,000? Or is it 30,000? Cloudherder offered. "All can be." Brave Surge nodded his head gravely. "How long are we gonna keep quizzing people?" "The total manpower of our guilds combined is just over 1,000 people, so there's no guarantee that we will obtain information from doing this." "You have a point. I even feel that we might get chased out of the city by the masses if we end up irking them so much with all our questioning," Cloudherder added morosely. Brave Surge leaked out a sly smile. "Hey, I'm not gonna keep this from you." "Whenever anything happened and people asked what guild we came from, I've been instructing my men to say that we're from Cloudherder." Cloudherder felt stunned for a moment when he heard this before abruptly bursting into laughter. "What's the matter?" Brave Surge asked, perplexed. Cloudherder was laughing so much that he could not even say a word. He raised his hand to point at Brave Surge before pointing at himself. Brave Surge immediately understood what he meant. "You mean to say that your guild has also been doing the same and was putting the blame on us, Carouse?" Cloudherder was still laughing uncontrollably as he nodded his head. "Fuck!" Brave Surge cursed, recalling how many times they had encountered each other in this one night. It was about 47 times if he included this meeting. 47 times. "Goddamn! Why am I so bored that I actually keep track of our chance encounters?" With this thought in mind, Brave Surge asked Cloudherder, "How many times have we met just tonight alone?" Cloudherder slowly stopped laughing as he replied, 48 times. 48, not 47? Did I miss one?" Brave Surge asked aloud. "You didn't," Cloudherder answered, explaining, "There's the time I saw you, but you didn't see me." "I doubt you would include that. You can't count that if I actually missed you," Brave Surge chastised lightly. MHM. "I'm counting the number of times I saw you not met you," Cloudherder retorted. "Ha ha ha." Both men shared a moment together. As they chatted on, the door to the tavern suddenly burst open as someone rushed over to Brave Surge's side. "Guild leader, I thought of a method. Why don't we put up posters all over Yunjuan City, so that people will come to us instead? Perhaps, the mage himself may contact us if he sees it." Brave Surge's expression changed when he heard the suggestion. "You could just message me, so why did you have to run over?" "I happened to be passing by and saw that you were drinking here." "What's the matter?" Brave Surge did not say another word as the person sitting across him slowly turned over and happily faced the newcomer. "That's a pretty good idea you've got there." "Cloudherder?" The player almost fainted, finally realizing why Brave Surge had admonished him. How would he have guessed that these two guild leaders would be drinking together? "Damn! You managed to acquire such a great idea from us." Brave Surge felt disgruntled. "Don't worry, I won't waste this tip-off," Cloudherder replied. "That's more like it. Hit me up when you receive information." Brave Surge promptly said. "What?" Cloudherder asked, looking at him with an incredulous look on his face. What? What I meant is that this round is on me." "Why would I tell you anything if I receive any information?" Cloudherder asked, laughing. Brave Surge had assumed that Cloudherder was planning to share information to them in return for the great tip-off, yet he had been wholly wrong. This caused his expression to darken. "Don't feel so pleased with yourself, as if you would receive a word on this matter before us. Don't forget that I have more men in my guild than you." That's right. You have way more men than my guild, Faux Herder said sarcastically. Fuck, let's go. Brave Surge brought the player of his along and left in a huff. With this another chance to headhunt the black-clothed mage, the sympathetic attitude they had for each other swiftly disappeared, once more standing on opposite sides for this struggle for talent. Faux Herder did not hurry to leave and stayed at where he was seated. In no time at all, several men walked up to him. What's the matter, boss? These men asked. Faux Herder chuckled. I was sitting and chatting with Brave Surge here moments ago when a guild member of his blurted out an idea, and I happened to hear what it is. What is it? These men pressed on. Posters. Faux Herder eagerly replied. Oh. The men's eyes immediately lit up. Not a bad idea, huh? Quickly get this done as soon as you can. Write a few more, as well. We won't just be posting posters, we'll even hand out flyers on the streets. No matter where it flies to, someone will surely read it and find us. Remember to mention about a substantial remuneration for information. Faux Herder ordered. How much should it be? Someone asked. This. Faux Herder hesitated. It was not an issue with currency, but that Carouse would also be doing the same thing. No matter how much amount was stated, both guilds might end up trying to one-up each other, resulting into the person selling the information to profit from this matter. It seemed that he would have to discuss this matter with Brave Surge. Just as Faux Herder was thinking of this, Brave Surge burst through the tavern double doors and approached Faux Herder. I need to discuss something with you. How coincidental, Faux Herder muttered to himself. Could we have thought of the same thing? You guys won't be stupid enough to put the remuneration right on the posters, right? Brave Surge asked. They were indeed on the same page. Faux Herder was very impressed as he shook his head with a smile. Of course, not. I know what you're worried about. Oh, that's good. We should corroborate on matters that can be worked together. Brave Surge smilingly recommended. I agree. Faux Herder nodded his head. We shall see what you guys write, then. Brave Surge stood by the side sternly. Those men of Cloud Herder were already making a poster to put its content on the guild channel once it was done so that the other members could copy it word for word. With their competitor standing right beside them, these people writing up the content of the poster felt somewhat uncomfortable and stared blankly at Brave Surge. Fuck off. Stop interrupting when they're trying to focus. Faux Herder shoved Brave Surge to the side. Do you two big bosses really not intend to include the remuneration on the posters? A sudden voice came over. When Brave Surge and Faux Herder looked at the voice's origin, they saw a beautiful lady stand up from a table and make her way to them. The two exchanged looks before asking the lady, what do you mean? If you don't mention the remuneration, how would I know who to sell this information I have on me? The beauty explained. What information? The two asked. That level 39 Mage of Amethyst Rebirth. The beauty smirked. The two looked at each other once more and asked, are you from Amethyst Rebirth? No. The beauty shook her head, saying, I just happen to have the information you two are seeking. Oh, how did that happen? Because I know the man that you two are looking for, she replied. What's his name? The two said at the same time, the only difference being their tone. The beauty smiled, not saying another word. The two men realized what was happening. Brave Surge thought for a bit before saying, lady, please don't leave just yet. With that, he grabbed Faux Herder and pulled him to the side.